Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump signing a rare earths deal with Australian Prime Minister Albanese, this in an effort to curb dependence on China. A top White House advisor expects the government shutdown to end this week, what he says President Trump will do if that fails to happen. In Chicago, a federal judge is questioning ICE and Border Patrol officials on the use of force and body camera compliance, while Illinois prepares a response to the Trump administration's request to deploy the National Guard. NTD's Chris Bob is downtown with the latest. President Trump will increase tariffs and cut subsidies to Colombia over drug trafficking. We discussed this with the Latin America correspondent for the Epoch Times. A fragile ceasefire is holding after the deaths of 2 Israeli soldiers and a wave of airstrikes on Gaza. The U.S. State Department warns Hamas to stop any planned attacks. 8 priceless jewels were stolen from the Louvre Museum in Paris. While the museum was open, police are now racing against time to find the thieves.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. President Trump and Australian Prime Minister Albanese signing a joint minerals deal in efforts to curb dependence on China. And the president floating other threats on China ahead of his meeting with CCP leader Xi Jinping in South Korea. We now go live to NTD's Mari Otsu at the White House. Good afternoon, Mari. What can you tell us about Prime Minister Albanese's visit?
Don, good afternoon. As China is now imposing tougher export controls on its own critical minerals, today President Trump and Australian Prime Minister Albanese are signing a joint rare earths deal in an effort to curb dependence on China. The deal involves the mining, processing, and exporting of these rare earths from Australia to the U.S. Take a look.
We've had a very good relationship. We've been working on that for quite a while. In about a year from now, we'll have so much critical mineral and rare earths that you won't know what to do with them. They'll be worth about $2.
And White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett this morning is saying that Australia will be really helpful in the effort to make the global economy less vulnerable to the, quote, rare earth extortion that we're seeing from the Chinese. President Trump and Albanese are also talking submarines and military equipment today, with President Trump saying that the AUKUS pact, a Biden-era security agreement between the U.S., the U.K., and Australia, is, quote, moving along very rapidly. President Trump also restates that additional 100% tariff threat on China if they cannot make a deal by November 1st, and floats export restrictions on aircrafts. Take a look.
Said, if we don't make a deal, I'm putting on an additional 100% on November 1st. I think we'll make a deal. They threatened us with rare earths, and I threatened them with tariffs, but I could also threaten them with many other things, like airplanes. You know about airplanes, because they can't get parts for their airplanes. We build their airplanes.
Trump is projecting optimism about getting a trade deal out of his expected meeting with CCP leader Xi Jinping on the sidelines of APEC in South Korea in about 2 weeks. But he also says that he demands China to buy American soybeans. And on Sunday, he demanded that China curb the export of fentanyl to the United States. Don, back to you.
All right, Mari, thank you. Australia is demanding answers from Beijing. A Chinese fighter jet released flares dangerously close to a Royal Australian Air Force plane over the South China Sea. Canberra says the flares came within striking distance of the aircraft, calling the maneuver unsafe and unprofessional. Australia's defense minister said the country formally raised the incident with China through both embassies, warning it posed a serious risk to the aircraft and crew. China's military accused Australia of intruding into airspace near the Parcella Islands, territory Beijing claims, and said it deployed forces to monitor and expel the plane. No injuries were damaged or reported. This marks the third dangerous encounter in less than a year. Australia says it will continue lawful patrols in international airspace and expects China to operate safely under international law. The U.S. and China will hold a new round of trade talks this weekend in Malaysia to prevent another tariff clash. President Trump called his proposed additional tariffs on Chinese goods unsustainable, speaking on Fox News.
I raised our tariffs to 100% on top of what they're already paying, which is far worse, far worse. We'll see what happens with China. They're always looking for an edge. You know, they ripped off our country for years. We're going to meet in a couple of weeks. We're going to meet in South Korea.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says he will meet in Malaysia with Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng to prevent a new round of tariffs. The two officials discussed trade in a video call Friday, agreeing to continue talks before the current tariff truce expires on November 10th. The meeting comes amid disputes over China's export restrictions on rare earth minerals. This comes just days after a major shakeup in China's military. Last Friday, Beijing ousted its number 2 general and the army's top political officer, along with 7 other high-ranking generals. The purge raises questions about whether this could impact China's ability to take Taiwan. The Chinese Communist Party sees Taiwan as part of China despite never having ruled it. Beijing has vowed to take it under control by force if necessary. The recent developments have sparked speculation that Xi Jinping may be losing power. President Donald Trump and Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese met today at the White House. Joining us to discuss is Grant Newsroom, retired U.S. Marine Colonel, former U.S. diplomat, and senior fellow at the Center for Security Policy. Colonel, always great to see you. Can you talk to us about how significant this first meeting is between the two leaders?
Well, it's a good meeting. I think particularly having signed the agreement on rare earth exports from Australia. Australia is swimming in rare earths, and they could probably provide all of America's requirements. The state of Montana probably could as well. But the fact that Australia has stepped up and says it's ready to develop its industry here and to link up with the United States and make Australia a main, if not the main, source of rare earths is a big deal. The two leaders, and I think Albanese and Trump may not like each other very much, but that's beside the point. That this is a significant thing, particularly given the importance of rare earths.
Do you think this meeting has improved the two nations' ties, its relationship?
Well, I don't know. In one sense, I suppose it's always good to sort of get together and have a cordial meeting. But there's something about Australia that if you live there, if you pay attention, and you say, for example, read the Australian press for a week, they despise Donald Trump. And there's also a latent sense of, not so latent actually, sense of anti-Americanism in Australia's political and ruling class. Hard to imagine, particularly for people of my generation, where we've always thought the Australians and the Americans love each other. And the Australians, make no mistake, are fine people and have a very good military, even if it doesn't quite have a strategy. But there's something going on here where the relationship is not what it was. It's still basically okay, but there is more friction than one would imagine, particularly coming from the Australian side.
Okay, Colonel, let me put it this way. If, let's say, China invades Taiwan, can the U.S. depend on Australia for help?
Maybe. And I would say it's better than 50% chance, but that's not huge. Australia also, one has to ask, well, which of Australia's 11 warships are they going to send up to help? The Australian military is very professional, but it doesn't have the hardware really that it needs. Their air force is good, of course, but would the Australian government, a Labour government in particular, would they go in on a Taiwan fight? I don't know. They say they will, or suggest they will, but I'm not sure. There's a sort of a softness towards the People's Republic of China in the Australian administration, the Labour Party, that one cannot overlook. And they have shown a willingness to sort of put national interest or national security second to the opportunity to sell lobster and wine to China. So it's not sure, it's not clear. I'd say it's better than 50% chance, but it's not what it once was. And I say the Australia of 30 years ago is not the Australia of today.
Okay, so if China is looking at this, what might they be thinking? How are they reacting? What message does this meeting send to Beijing?
Well, it certainly is better than an acrimonious meeting, like as Mr. Trump has had, say, with Ramaphosa of South Africa. and also Zelensky once or twice. But so the Australians see that the Americans and the Australians are getting along, they are cooperating, and the AUKUS agreement as well, where the Americans are going to provide submarines and submarine technology to Australia. That's a big deal. So China looks at this and says, well, how do we have to split this relationship? And economic pressure on Australia is one way that they are going to go about it. And that's also they also have a political warfare effort, very active against Australia, and they are using the Chinese diaspora in Australia to exert influence on this, and also appealing to that fundamental resentment that you find in parts of Australian society against the United States. So China knows it has its work cut out for it when it comes to Australia, but it also sees that it has some opportunities.
Okay, so you said earlier that the Australia now is not the Australia 30 years ago. Can you talk about that shift a little bit? What has changed? How is Australia balancing its ties between the U.S. and China?
Well, partly, and I'm sort of half joking, is that a lot of people have the image of Australia as a bunch of Paul Hogans, or also as a bunch of the people who stopped the Japanese in New Guinea on the Kokoda Track in 1942, and the first ones to do it. And it's just it's a change in sort of national character. It's hard to explain. Partly a certain type of people has died off. And what you do have is one that is, in some respects, anti-military, and also is all in on the green, sort of the green movement, despite Australia having all the energy resources it needs. And it simply is not as committed to its own defense, it seems. And it has gotten itself dependent on the People's Republic of China. Australia doesn't make very much anymore. And when it comes to energy, it probably has about 3 or 4 weeks in the event those supplies were cut off. So it hasn't taken national security as seriously as it used to. But I will stress the Australian Defence Forces are very, very professional. The big problem with them is there's not 10 times as many of them. But in terms of the country, it's almost they haven't decided if they're exactly what they are pro. Are they pro-West, or are they trying to split the difference? And for many years, in recent times, the Australians have said, well, we want to rely on China for our economy. We want to rely on the Americans for security. Well, you can only do that for so long. At some point, you're going to have to choose, and that's a balancing act that really can't continue. And when you do look, as I said, at the nature of the Australian Labor Party and even some of the Liberals, the Conservatives, that there is a sort of a distancing, I think, from the United States and from sort of the West, as you might call it, and a cozying up to the PRC. Of course, business interests in Australia, just like in the United States, do their best to ensure that China's interests are well represented.
Okay, so you're saying that this balancing act can't continue. How crucial is Australia to U.S. efforts to counter China? Can the U.S. do without Australia or other nations in the area like New Zealand as well?
Well, we could probably do without New Zealand, but Australia is very important. I would say it's not as important as Japan when it comes to regional defense, but it's a close second. When it comes to that. Geographically, Australia is very important if you're going to not just conduct military operations, but you want all the help you can get. And the political benefit of having Australia aligned with us or on side, and having the Australian military available to pitch in where they can. And they have always been willing to do that to date. That is important. And there's a political, psychological aspect to having Australia as a solid ally, not just of the United States, but of Japan and the other free nations in the region. So it's an important piece of the puzzle. Is it indispensable? It's hard to say. Well, maybe not, but you certainly don't want to have Australia drift away into some sort of inadvertent neutrality.
All right, so Colonel, I want to pull on a thread that you mentioned earlier on rare earths. Is it possible for Australia and the U.S. to cooperate in such a way to reduce complete dependency, eliminate complete dependency on China on critical minerals?
I think it probably is. Not just Australia. As I said, the United States has plenty of them in America. But Australia is blessed with an overabundance of these things. And if they're serious about it, they make the effort. That the Chinese may find that, well, they're not quite as important as they used to be. And this could happen quicker than people think if the will is there. But do expect the PRC, the Chinese, to apply a lot of pressure on Australia to try to sabotage and sort of coerce the Australians into not moving forward as fast as they could or as much as they could with this rare earth proposal that Albanese just signed today with President Trump.
Okay, Colonel, just one last question. Can you speak in detail what has been the impact, really, in the real world of China's dominance on rare earths?
Well, it is such that the Americans and the Trump administration have not been able to do anything near what they would like to do in applying economic pressure and other pressure on the PRC. By China playing this card, it put the administration in a position where they had major companies, American companies, coming to the White House and saying, look, if we don't have ready access to these things, we're going to have to shut down some of our factories within a matter of weeks. And that's how big a chokehold the Chinese have got. They've set about this decades ago, and they have gone about really getting a vertical lock on the entire rare earth industry to the point where the figure is something like 70% of all rare earths come from China and 90% of the processing is done in China. And that is a stranglehold. But sometimes when you have that stranglehold, it doesn't quite have the effect you think. It's not as if the Americans and the West are going to roll over. What you could find is it simply has spurred them on to doing things like the Americans and the Australians have agreed to do and develop alternative sources, alternative rare earth industries, in effect, processing systems. And China may find itself with a lot of rare earths, but not being the only game in town. And that is something that we just might see.
Well, okay, Colonel, great insight as always. Pleasure speaking with you.
Well, thanks very much.
In Chicago, a federal judge is questioning ICE and Border Patrol officials on the use of force in body camera compliance, while Illinois prepares a response to the Trump administration's request to deploy the National Guard. Don't go away.
I trod on my glasses yesterday, and I had to pay up front for a new pair that I can't even pick up for another 10 days. So I looked for another way, and I found Select Specs. I ordered online. My new glasses just arrived this morning, and I can pay over the next few weeks. This is the way to buy glasses.
See now, pay later with Select Specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options only at selectspecs.com.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. Without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one get one free offer goes away.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretane Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure natural energy with Puretane Black Ginseng. Order now at puretane.com.
Right now, downtown Chicago, a federal judge is pressing immigration and customs enforcement and Border Patrol officials on the recent use of force and tear gas during immigration operations, as well as compliance with her order requiring all federal agents under Operation Midway Blitz to wear and activate their body cameras. NTD's Chris Bob is downtown to update us. Chris, can you give us a sense of what led to this point and why federal agents are back in court today?
Good afternoon, Don. Yes, so I'm outside the Dirksen U.S. Courthouse where currently there's a hearing going on with a couple DHS officials. We saw earlier Kyle Havrick go in from Customs and Border Patrol, as well as Sean Byers, who's with ICE. He's the deputy director. This all relates to Operation Midway Blitz, which is ongoing in Chicago. We learned last week from a DHS statement that it has led to over 1,500 arrests so far in Illinois. The issue is there have been incidents where tear gas have been deployed. The specific hearing is focusing on a previous order which was issued by the U.S. District Court Judge Sarah Ellis, blocking these law enforcement officials from using tear gas on journalists, on protesters who don't pose a threat. But last Tuesday, there was an incident where, in the process of apprehending 2 individuals in a car that reports say rammed into another vehicle, a crowd gathered and was disrupting law enforcement, so tear gas was utilized. This has happened in many other cities that we've been covering with regard to the ICE deployments. You see a large crowd gather and honk their horns or stand in front of ICE agents who are trying to apprehend people who have entered the country illegally. Right now, we're trying to figure out what the result will be. There's another issue here at play, which is the utilization of body cameras on these ICE agents. It was previously ordered by the same judge that all ICE agents should wear body cameras, and while they're fulfilling their duties, they should have them on. I want to read to you the statement that she made when it was previously discovered that some agents were not using body cameras. This was not a suggestion. It wasn't a hint. It wasn't a topic of discussion or conversation. It was an order. So I will enter it today, and then I will expect it to be followed. It will be followed. We heard from the second in command of CBP that there are 232 agents in the area. A couple dozen will be leaving tomorrow, but he confirmed that they all have working cameras and they will be utilizing them.
So, Chris, in addition to today's hearing on ICE and Border Patrol, the Trump administration recently asked the Supreme Court to allow the immediate deployment of National Guard troops in Illinois. How does that intersect with today's hearing on ICE and Border Patrol actions?
We're waiting for some updates today from Illinois. If you remember, on October 4th, President Trump issued an order to federalize or take control of the National Guard in Illinois, 300 members, as well as the deployment of 200 National Guardsmen from Texas and 16 troops from California. That was blocked last week when I was flying in. And we know that U.S. District Judge April Perry issued a restraining order on October 9th forbidding the administration from deploying the National Guard. The statement there was no credible evidence that there was a danger of rebellion in the state of Illinois. So today we're waiting for the state of Illinois. They have until 4 p.m. Local time, or 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, to issue a response to an ask from the federal government to the U.S. Supreme Court to weigh in on April Perry's order blocking the deployment. So right now, the Supreme Court was asked by the federal government to weigh in an emergency fashion, and Illinois should be responding within the next couple of hours. Back to you, Don.
Okay, Chris, thank you for the report. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem shared an update on how many criminal illegal immigrants have been arrested since President Trump took office. Here's a clip from today's press conference in Sarasota, Florida.
Since January, the Department of Homeland Security has arrested over 480,000 criminal illegal aliens. 70% of those individuals have criminal charges against them or have been convicted of those criminal charges. Across the country, we're making communities safer so that families can thrive and they can prosper and they can enjoy the kind of freedom that this country was established to provide. Unfortunately, many times we see the news distorting the truth and not bringing the real facts of the stories to the American people, and that is one of the reasons why we're here today, is to make sure that we're focused on what this office has done.
The secretary called for an end to hostile rhetoric against law enforcement, saying it's led to a 1,000% increase in violence against officers. Noem stressed that officers put their lives at risk every day to protect Americans. The secretary warned that illegal immigrants who commit crimes will be brought to justice. She added that the administration is willing to help those who want to self-deport. Noem said the DHS will continue with targeted operations in Portland, Chicago, and Memphis, and will also be going into San Francisco. An illegal immigrant who was living with a judge has pleaded guilty to gun possession. Christian Ortega Lopez is a suspected Trendy Argua gang member. He was arrested in February at Judge Jose Cano's house in Mexico. Ortega Lopez pled guilty to illegally possessing firearms and conspiracy to destroy evidence. Federal authorities say Judge Cano hired him for some home repairs and then allowed him to stay. The judge is facing criminal charges providing a safe haven for Ortega Lopez and allegedly destroying evidence. In an interview with local TV, Cano said he never knew about Ortega Lopez's alleged ties with Trendy Argua. The Secret Service has uncovered a suspicious hunting stand overlooking the area where President Trump's plane lands at Palm Beach International Airport. Officials say agents found the elevated structure Thursday during advanced security checks ahead of the president's arrival. The FBI has now taken over the investigation. Director Kash Patel said the stand had a clear line of sight to Air Force One's arrival zone, but no suspects were found at the scene. He added that federal agents are analyzing evidence and digital data to identify who may have placed it there. Law enforcement sources say the stand may have been set up months ago. The discovery follows two assassination attempts in January, or rather in 2024, one in July when President Trump was shot in the ear at a Pennsylvania campaign rally, and another one in Florida where Ryan Ruth was convicted of plotting a sniper attack on a golf course. First son Eric Trump praised the Secret Service, saying they did a great job finding the stand. An artillery cell exploded prematurely during the Marine Corps' 250th anniversary celebrations over Interstate 5 in California Saturday, raining shrapnel down striking vehicles, including a patrol vehicle, according to California Highway Patrol. In a statement yesterday, CHP said no injuries were reported during the incident, which happened in an area where CHP had stopped traffic during the live fire exercise at Cape Pendleton. Amazon's cloud service unit, AWS, is struggling to recover after being hit by an outage that took down several popular apps. Cybersecurity expert Ed Amoroso says it could take time before the root cause is identified.
Malicious activity is the minority of event. The reason we spend so much time on the militia stuff is because that can be really insidious. Like sometimes for me, and I've been doing this for 40 years, when I see something that's having trouble restoring, when I see something that might be getting worse, for example, like it's this and then it's worse, then it's worse, then I start thinking malicious. But when there's an outage, it cascades, and then the company starts to rebuild and you see things being restored and being improved, that's usually indicative of something that does not have a cybersecurity component to it.
The outage rippled through major consumer and enterprise platforms, including airlines, banks, payment apps, social media platforms, and ride-hailing services. AWS is one of the world's most critical cloud infrastructure provider. It hosts everything from streaming platforms and smartphone apps to financial services and emergency systems. Amoroso said, "We are in an era right now where we are very dependent on the cloud providers."
I mean, the ripple effects of this is obvious. We've all become very dependent on cloud, on the big hyperscalers. So the advantage there is that we get great products, services, they're able to amortize a lot of what they do across a wide base. So the costs are low and the service levels are high. That's the good thing. The bad thing is the proverbial all your eggs in one basket. So when you do have, your business running, say, on Microsoft or running on Amazon, you knock wood every day hoping that things are going to be okay. Now,
Amazon said the issue stemmed from a breakdown in how its DynamoDB service was being reached and accessed across the network. Reports of problems with AWS continue after Amazon initially said it fully mitigated the earlier outage. The tech giant says it is fixing the problem and appears to be working. Okay, President Trump will increase tariffs and cut subsidies to Colombia over drug trafficking. We discuss this with the Latin America correspondent for the Epoch Times after this break.
My mom and dad were traditional Asian parents. Now my father would go to work before I woke up in the morning, and then he would come home too tired to play with me. I tell my son, I love you every single day. Now my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. So I teased him the other day and I said, how come you never say that to me? And he said, you're too old now. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the material things, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious minute or moment.
Say bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different from when I was 3 or 4 years old. I did tough things. I thought everybody needed to do tough things, and if you didn't, I didn't have time for it. I had a very successful career at a very young age, and life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally on the inside. And then I got hurt. I wanted to be better as a person, and I really dug into mental health. I start my day with 20-minute workouts. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Horses are so therapeutic. They know what you're feeling. When you're nervous, they're nervous. He won't say it back, but we're pals. I take a lot of responsibility in taking care of my kids, my family, and being there for them. You're gonna have tough days. Everybody does. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
My 15-year-old son, Ethan, and I had a fun and relaxing morning. We returned home, and Ethan walked to his best friend's house an hour later. I heard the ambulance scream by the street, carrying my beautiful boy. Ethan was shot in the head in his best friend's house with an unsecured gun. He had 0 chance of survival. The father, the gun owner, he stored his 3 guns and bullets in a shoebox.
How do you feel?
That has to be the most horrific experience that a human could ever have.
David, would you give any advice?
First thing you do is not keep your ammunition with your weapons, and that your weapons need to be locked at all times.
Colombia's foreign ministry said today the country has recalled its ambassador from the United States. On Sunday, Trump accused Colombian President Gustavo Petro of being involved in the drug trafficking, alleging he has knowledge of drug fields in Colombia. Trump also immediately halted all subsidy payments to Colombia.
They are a drug manufacturing machine, Colombia, and we're not going to be part of it. So we're going to drop all money that we're giving to them. It has nothing to do with them stopping drug production. And you look at the fields are loaded up with drugs, and they refine the drugs, and they make tremendous amounts of cocaine, and they send it all over the world, and they destroy families. No, Colombia is out of control, and now they have the worst president they've ever had. He's a lunatic who's got a lot of problems, mental problems.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth also said U.S. forces carried out an airstrike on a vessel linked to a Colombian terror group. He said the group was carrying large amounts of narcotics along a known drug route. Colombia's President Petro defended his administration's efforts to combat drug trafficking in Colombia, the world's leading cocaine producer. He called himself Colombia's strongest opponent to narcotics. President Trump will increase tariffs and cut subsidies to Colombia over drug trafficking. Joining us to discuss is Marcos Chadguez, editor-in-chief for the Epoch Times Brazil and Latin America correspondent for the Epoch Times USA. So good to see you today. You know, Trump accused President Petro of facilitating drug production. What are your initial thoughts on this, the overall situation here?
Well, hey, Don. So thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure. Now, my initial thoughts are twofold. One, this is part of a campaign pledge really by President Trump to try to focus on national security and try to lessen the flow of drugs into the United States. On the other hand, we have Marco Rubio being the first Latino Secretary of State, and that's not by chance. The US has been very aware of trying to secure its influence on its near abroad, so we're talking Latin America mostly. And that really is another step in the sense of strong arming lots of mainly left-leaning Latino leaders, Latin American leaders, into a position that's less adversarial towards the US. So my initial thoughts are twofold. Campaign pledge on national security, and then also, of course, asserting US influence in its near abroad in the Latin America region.
But, you know, I can't help but wonder whether this is going to impact relations between the two nations. Can you speak to that?
I mean, the relationship is not excellent between President Trump and President Petro. Let's not forget that on the early days of the second Trump administration, Petro was refusing deportation flights of Latino immigrants in the US, illegal immigrants who were being deported, and he was not happy with the way that was happening. So Trump basically started talking about tariffs and even posted a picture of himself, Trump, on Truth Social dressed as a gangster. And talking specifically about Petro. So the relationship is not great, but there's a broader picture here where Colombia, of course, is probably the most traditional US ally in the region. So in the broader context of the long-term relationship between both countries, there is some leeway, some maneuvering room for us to see how this plays out. But in the short term, the relationship was already not great. And this is yet another escalation. But I wouldn't say it's exactly a breakthrough. It's another chapter of a broader trend we're seeing during the second Trump administration.
So do you think Colombia will respond in some form? How will they respond?
I mean, they have already recalled their U.S. ambassador. That's a response. I'm not sure exactly what other moves Petro has in his hand, and he definitely has to be careful not to overplay his hand in international relations. Let's not forget that Colombia has elections coming up. You know, Petro can't run for a second term. The constitutional rules in Colombia are that presidents only get to run for one term, but he will definitely try to get somebody else to follow up on his footsteps. He is the first leftist president in Colombia's history, or at least recent history, and it's very challenging for him right now. So he has a very delicate, way to walk towards this, because at the same time he will want to manage the international situation and try to avoid further escalation of an international crisis. Because the elections are coming up after all. But on the other hand, while this is also a diplomatic issue, it is true that Colombia is the world's leading cocaine producer. It is also true, according to the United Nations Office for Drugs and Crime, that Colombia has skyrocketed production and it's breaking record after record. The production has been rising for the last 13 years. So what Colombia could do in response, I mean, recalling the ambassador is a symbolic move, but they're in a position right now where it's very hard for them to have the cards, and even with the cards that they have to be very careful not to overplay their hand, because, as I said, elections are coming up, and Petro has a big task ahead if he wants to have somebody else on the left come after him in Colombia's presidency.
So, following up on that, how do you think what President Trump said, including the idea of tariffs, withdrawing subsidies, how could that influence Colombia's internal politics?
I mean, I think it will definitely have an influence. It's hard to tell right now because some of the leaders that Trump has antagonized, I mean, if we're talking in an electoral sense, some could say it has backfired. I mean, if you look at Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau in Canada, what happened was that Mark Carney, the leftist candidate, eventually, also because of Canadian sentiment towards Trump, ended up having a boom in popularity and turned around the situation where liberals were set to lose the election in Canada. We have also seen in my native Brazil, Lula gaining popularity during a standoff with Trump. So it's hard to tell how it's going to play out because that's, of course, not a hard set rule, but we have seen some of that happen in a few countries. Now, it's not only about domestic policy in an electoral sense, because Petro was already very hard pressed into changing his policy with drugs. His so-called total peace plan, changing the approach to guerrillas, to narco-terrorists in the country, which traditionally has a lot of them, the FARC, the ELN, the National Liberation Army, and other socialist guerrillas. I mean, he was already hard pressed on changing his policy towards that. I mean, record production is a sign that it was not working. So in the electoral sense, it's hard to tell. It might in the short term boost Petro's popularity, but we'll have to wait and see whether that carries all the way until the elections and whether it's enough to change the situation where his popularity is not doing well. And on the other hand, it will probably press him into changing drug-related policy. He was already having to reconsider given, what can be described as a failure of his so-called total peace plan, trying to appease narco-terrorist guerrillas involved in drug trafficking.
Okay, Marcos, can I just ask you one more question here? So you said earlier that the relationship between President Trump and Petro is not great to begin with. With this latest event, whether you want to call it an escalation or something else, could this push Colombia closer to China in terms of its relationship and ties?
I mean, to an extent, like I said, we have to keep in mind that the broader trend is that Colombia is a historical ally in the US, for the US in the region. So on the short term, we might see some Chinese advancement, but it's very nuanced because China has its own US crisis to deal with the trade war, with rare earth minerals, with Trump meeting Xi at the end of the week in the APEC summit. So there's a lot going on in the relationship between China and the US, and I don't think the Chinese Communist Party would have the energy right now to keep going further in Latin America as it has. In the broader sense, the answer would be not likely, but in the short term, we might see diplomatic relations getting closer, even if as a sign to the US that Colombia might have other partners on the table. So I would say in the short term, maybe in the long run, it would be really hard for Colombia to break away from US influence and from the US as an ally. Let's not forget, though, that we might see some symbolic acts happening. When we had the Chinese spy balloon flying over the US a while back, the same happened in Colombia, and their attitude was way more appeasing than the US was, even back then during the Biden administration.
Well, okay, Marcos, good to talk to you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Now on to the fragile peace effort in the Middle East. The ceasefire appears to be holding up after a deadly flare-up in Gaza between Israel and Hamas terrorists. Here's the latest.
The ceasefire between Israel and the Hamas terror group is still holding. A deadly attack in southern Gaza killed 2 Israeli soldiers. Israel launched a wave of strikes in response before agreeing to resume the ceasefire Sunday evening. The U.S. State Department warned Hamas to stop any planned attacks, saying Washington and other guarantors of the deal would respond to ceasefire violations. President Trump confirmed the truce remains intact.
We want to make sure that it's going to be very peaceful with Hamas. And as you know, they've been quite rambunctious. It's going to be handled toughly but properly.
Is the ceasefire still in place?
Yeah, it is.
Trump also says he wants to help rebuild Gaza, telling Fox News about what he calls a Freedom Place initiative led by a new board of peace. Trump says he has been asked to chair the board. Meanwhile, Vice President Vance says the ceasefire is fragile but offers the best chance for lasting peace.
The best case scenario, meaning if this thing absolutely produces that sustainable long-term peace that the president and I hope that it will, there are going to be fits and starts. We think that it has the best chance for a sustainable peace, but even if it does that, it's going to have hills and valleys, and we're going to have to monitor the situation.
And in Tel Aviv, Trump's nominee for Ambassador-at-Large for International Religious Freedom, Mark Walker, met freed hostage Keith Siegel and with hostage families, urging vigilance in enforcing the ceasefire.
We operate with strength, but we always say something in America called trust but verify. And I think that's what we're going to have to continue to do with Hamas, is some of the behavior that we've seen in the last little while.
Walker was joined by Ruby Chen, whose son Ite was killed and whose body is still held in Gaza. He pleaded for all hostages, living and dead, to be returned.
There was an agreement signed about 10 days ago that talked about the release of 48 hostages. That is what Hamas committed to. And we've only seen 29 hostages come out. That was not the expectation of the mediators. That was not the expectation of the families.
Meanwhile, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and former Trump advisor Jared Kushner spoke to CBS News earlier, discussing the talks that led to the ceasefire. On 60 Minutes, Witkoff spoke about meeting negotiator Khalil al-Hayya, whose son had been killed in Israeli strikes in Doha.
And we expressed our condolences to him for the loss of his son. He mentioned it. And I told him that I had lost a son and that we were both members of a really bad club, parents who have buried children.
Witkoff lost his son in 2011 to an opioid overdose. Kushner described how the conversations seemed to change the whole mood of the negotiations.
When Steve and him spoke about their sons, it turned from a negotiation with a terrorist group to seeing two human beings kind of showing a vulnerability with each other.
Aid deliveries into Gaza, briefly halted Sunday, are now expected to resume. Sunday's deadly attack in Rafah killed 2 Israeli soldiers and wounded 3 others. According to residents and authorities in Gaza, the Israeli counterattack killed at least 26 people. By nightfall, Israel announced it would once again enforce the truce, warning it would respond to any further violations. Hamas denied involvement in the Rafah attack and said it remained committed to the ceasefire.
A U.S. Embassy spokesperson said Special Envoy Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner returned to Israel today. They're expected to meet members of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government, and Israel today reopened one border crossing for aid. Vice President J.D. Vance will arrive in Israel tomorrow. The country's airport authority announced preparations for his arrival at Tel Aviv's airport. Israel's airports authority said traffic disruptions around the airport were expected between 10:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. local time, which is 3:30 to 6:30 a.m. Eastern. And 8 priceless jewels were stolen from the Louvre Museum in Paris. While the museum was open, police are now racing against time to find the 4 thieves who broke into the museum. We have more news after this break.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
Food. It fuels our bodies, nourishes our spirits, and brings us together. Because we all need nutritious food to thrive.
Food gives me energy and it also helps me focus.
But not everyone knows where their next meal is coming from. And 1 in 7 people in America face hunger. It's tougher than ever for too many of us. But the simple truth is, ending hunger is possible, and it starts with you. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, to help families in your community facing hunger. Feeding America works from coast to coast with partner food banks, food pantries, and meal programs. Your monthly gift delivers food where it's needed most, puts fresh food on the table, and helps kids have healthy meals all year round, even when school is out.
You can see the difference with the kids when they're full. Food is everything.
Please call the number on your screen or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org. Give $19 a month. Your first gift can double an impact. And we'll send you this free canvas grocery bag as a reminder of how you're helping to end hunger for good.
When it comes down to it, it's about taking care of your family first and the loved ones that you need to provide for.
Food donations help me tremendously, and I'm very grateful for the food bank.
I have hope.
The simple truth is, ending hunger in America is possible. You can help make it happen. The need is urgent. Call or go online now to helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double in impact.
Big things are happening at Mathis Home. Come in now for 65th anniversary savings all over the store. Like this oversized sofa in an ultra soft fabric with thick premium gel cushions and 5 throw pillows. Anniversary priced at just $9.99. That's an incredible value. Just one of over 100 great sofas in stock and ready for you to enjoy tonight with fast and easy financing and free delivery. Don't miss out on 65th anniversary savings happening now at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
A human rights atrocity described as a modern-day genocide is exposed in an award-winning documentary. The documentary, State Organs, uncovers the Chinese regime's forced organ harvesting trade. A local councillor in the UK told NTD that even though the audience members will be shocked and horrified, more people need to know about it. NTD's Jane Werrell reports from the UK.
A documentary that many say is hard to believe exposes the Chinese Communist Party's state-sanctioned forced organ harvesting.
It's a documentary, so it's real. A film wouldn't be, and you'd know that if you were watching it. But this is real. Despite knowing that people who attend will be shocked and horrified, they need to know.
2 screenings of the 2024 documentary State Organs were held in the Clark Foley Community Hub in Ilkley, Yorkshire. An international tribunal held in London in 2019 found there was clear evidence that forced organ harvesting has taken place in China for years on a significant scale and is still taking place. It found practitioners of the Buddhist school meditation Falun Gong were the primary victim group, with other persecuted minorities such as Uyghurs in the Xinjiang region, Tibetans, and house Christians also at risk.
It's not an easy subject for anyone to face up to and look, even as someone in the Western world that's quite far removed from it. But it's a modern day genocide. I'm proud that we've been able to show it here today in Ilkley, and I just hope that starts some conversations, because it's not even something that people have any. That's a common thread with people that I've spoken to, just not having any sort of knowledge of it.
It's not what happens in a civilised society, and I think the rest of the world, once this is well known, will indeed be very shocked. It's just not right. It's inhumane. It's good that people get the opportunity to see what's happening around the globe, and as this is in China.
Some audience members were moved to tears and hoped that more could be done to give a voice to those who can't speak up for themselves. Jane Werrell, NTD News.
Authorities in France are investigating after the Louvre Museum in Paris was robbed. Thieves made off with several priceless jewels yesterday in what officials call a highly professional operation. Our international correspondent David Vivez reports from Paris.
We might never see those jewels again. The sapphire necklace of Queen Marie-Amélie, the emerald necklace offered by Napoleon to his wife Marie-Louise, a priceless loss for the museum, according to the Interior Ministry.
Authorities are still investigating on the robbery that occurred on Sunday 9:30 a.m. Here's what police and media reports say about how it happened. The thieves first secured the area with traffic cones before climbing up in a basket. Once they reached the first floor, they used an angle grinder to cut through a window and entered the Apollo Gallery. Their target was the museum's most valuable pieces, 2 display cases holding Napoleon's jewels and the jewels of the sovereigns. They smashed the cases and triggered an alarm. The entire operation lasted less than 4 minutes before the suspect escaped on a motorbike on this street. Investigators believe it was a highly professional hit, right here in one of the most guarded museums in the world.
CNews TV released footage of the robbery taken inside the gallery, showing one man wearing a yellow jacket near a display. A yellow jacket was later found by police. 4 suspects are actively being sought by investigators. Ministry of Interior said they might be foreigners. The crown of Queen Eugénie, made of 1,354 diamonds and 56 emeralds, has been recovered but damaged. One of the world's most beautiful diamonds, Le Régent, was not stolen. President Emmanuel Macron wrote on X that the thieves would be brought to justice and that every effort would be made to recover the stolen pieces. Authorities have since published a list confirming that 8 items were taken in total. Earlier this year, the Louvre, the world's most visited museum, requested urgent help from the French government. Union representatives had been warning about the deteriorating state of some parts of the building, including holes in need of restoration.
Alors les agents du Louvre, dont je suis,
The Louvre staff, including myself, are both extremely sad and extremely angry about what happened today. Extremely sad because, obviously, it's our job to protect this building, this institution, the collections it houses, and the public who visit it. And in fact, today, it wasn't protected as we would have liked.
They also pointed to the lack of protection for the art pieces.
Alerts have been issued for months and months by all safety and security personnel. And today, what we feared happened, looting and pillaging.
President Macron responded to the criticism by announcing a $1 billion plan for a comprehensive and independent audit of safety and prevention measures, increased human resources for surveillance and reception, and complete transparency regarding the findings of the investigation. The museum remains closed today. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Despite receiving over $10 billion in security assistance to counter drug trafficking, Colombia now produces more cocaine than it ever has. The Trump administration is now targeting the South American country's government inaction. Stay with us.
With almost 4 decades in the spotlight, Cindy Crawford has never lost her stunning glow. With her gorgeous, age-defying skin, US Weekly says whatever she's doing, it's clearly working. How does her skin still look firm, smooth, and youthful at 58? It's meaningful beauty. And now, with new advanced formulas, it's better than ever, delivering our age-defying ingredients even deeper into the skin to fight wrinkles where they begin. Just wait until you see the difference meaningful beauty can make for you.
Instant hydration, instant plumping. My skin looks amazing.
What I'm most proud of is over 5 million women have trusted Meaningful Beauty, and they're getting great results, and I get that feedback from them in airports, supermarkets, walking down the street, and I love it.
And today, we are celebrating 20 years of Meaningful Beauty with a brand new offer you don't want to miss. You can get the entire advanced Meaningful Beauty system with all 5 age-defying super treatments. And when you order today, you'll receive our Targeted Treatment Duo, a $128 value free. Introducing the Wrinkle Smoothing Capsules to target crow's feet, forehead lines, and lines around your mouth. Plus, you'll also get the new Skin Renewing Facial Tool with heat, massage, and red light to boost the absorption of the wrinkle smoothing capsules and reduce the appearance of puffiness. The Skin Renewing Facial Tool and the Wrinkle Smoothing Capsules together create Meaningful Beauty's amazing targeted treatment duo.
This plus this equals incredible results.
Get all this, a $300 value for just $49.95. But you must act quickly. Results guaranteed or your money back.
If you haven't tried Meaningful Beauty yet, this new offer is something you don't want to miss.
This special offer is not available in any store, so don't wait. Scan the code, call the number below, or go to meaningfulbeauty.com right now.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back in stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets, only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings, regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump signing a rare earths deal with Australian Prime Minister Albanese, this in an effort to curb dependence on China. Despite receiving over $10 billion in security assistance to counter drug trafficking, Colombia now produces more cocaine than ever. The Trump administration is now targeting what it calls the inaction of what the country's government has done. The Trump administration is probing who's funding the No Kings protests. We speak to the author of The Man Behind the Curtain Inside the Secret Network of George Soros for his insights. In Chicago, a federal judge is questioning ICE and Border Patrol officials on the use of force and body camera compliance, while Illinois prepares a response to the Trump administration's request to deploy the National Guard. NTD's Chris Bob is downtown with the latest. 480,000. That's how many criminal illegal immigrants have been arrested under President Trump. We have more from DHS Secretary Christino.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Thank you for staying with us. President Trump and Australian Prime Minister Albanese signing a joint minerals deal in efforts to curb dependence on China. And the president floating other threats on China ahead of his meeting with CCP leader Xi Jinping in South Korea. NTD's Mari Otsu brings us more from the White House.
As China is now imposing tougher export controls on its own critical minerals, today President Trump and Australian Prime Minister Albanese are signing a joint rare earths deal in an effort to curb dependence on China. The deal involves the mining, processing, and exporting of these rare earths from Australia to the U.S. Take a look.
We've had a very good relationship. We've been working on that for quite a while. In about a year from now, we'll have so much critical mineral and rare earths that you won't know what to do with them. They'll be worth about $2.
And White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett this morning is saying that Australia will be really helpful in the effort to make the global economy less vulnerable to the, quote, rare earth extortion that we're seeing from the Chinese. President Trump and Albanese are also talking submarines and military equipment today, with President Trump saying that the AUKUS pact, a Biden-era security agreement between the U.S., the U.K., and Australia, is, quote, moving along very rapidly. President Trump also restates that additional 100% tariff threat on China if they cannot make a deal by November 1st, and floats export restrictions on aircrafts. Take a look.
Said, if we don't make a deal, I'm putting on an additional 100% on November 1st. I think we'll make a deal. They threatened us with rare earths, and I threatened them with tariffs, but I could also threaten them with many other things, like airplanes. You know about airplanes, because they can't get parts for their airplanes. We build their airplanes.
Trump is projecting optimism about getting a trade deal out of his expected meeting with CCP leader Xi Jinping on the sidelines of APEC in South Korea in about 2 weeks. But he also says that he demands China to buy American soybeans. And on Sunday, he demanded that China curb the export of fentanyl to the United States. Don, back to you.
All right, Mari, thank you. A U.S. Embassy spokesperson said Special Envoy Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner returned to Israel today. They're expected to meet members of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government, and Israel today reopened one border crossing for aid. Vice President J.D. Vance will arrive in Israel tomorrow. The country's airport authority announced preparations for his arrival at Tel Aviv Airport. So Israel's airport's authorities said traffic disruptions around the airport were expected between 10:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. local time, which is 3:30 to 6:30 a.m. Eastern. Israel announced that its ceasefire with Hamas would continue. Joining us to discuss is David Wormser, Middle East Affairs Analyst at the Center for Security Policy and former Senior Advisor to U.S. Vice President Cheney on the Middle East and Strategic Affairs. So David, always great to see you. Now, both sides, as you know, accuse the other of incidents or actions that violate the ceasefire. How are you looking at the situation right now?
Yeah, well, I'm actually looking at it with Israel and the United States are roughly on the same page. They both basically blame Hamas for the violations. Israeli, quote, violations were usually responses to Hamas violations. Of course, the big violation that Hamas is doing is it hasn't released the hostages, the dead ones, but they haven't released them all. And the Israelis have solid intelligence, which they've shared with the United States, that Hamas actually holds a large number of them, of those 16 left, that actually could release them any minute, but they don't. So there's sort of these large-scale violations. But the bottom line is the United States and Israel want to play this through. So they're going to exercise a degree of tolerance and indulgence of Hamas. It was difficult yesterday because Hamas attacked Israeli forces, and 2 Israeli soldiers were killed, which of course is a materially grave violation of the ceasefire. But again, the Israelis and the Americans have a very strong interest in playing this through, not only to get the remaining hostages back, but also to move on to the next phase and see how serious both the world, the region, various regional players, and Hamas is to fulfill the terms of the agreed upon 20-point framework. And that's why Witkoff and Kushner are there now, and Vance comes there tomorrow, is to essentially lay down a game plan on how to proceed further to ferret out how serious Hamas is. And that bottom line then winds up with what the president said early this morning, which was, look, it can be done easily or it can be done hard. Hamas will disarm. Hamas will give up power. Or he could, within 2 minutes, have the Israelis go back in and finish it off. So we'll have to see how it turns out. But the Israelis and Americans would prefer to do it diplomatically first.
You know, David, can we get an idea of how you feel about this ceasefire? Because on reporting on this issue, there's words like fragile being thrown around. What is your current feeling on the strength of this ceasefire, this agreement right now?
Well, it is fragile. There's no doubt. And it's fragile in part because we know that where it goes from here is all contingent on the terms that were laid out in the 20-point plan. And the 20-point plan is very clear that Hamas now has to disarm, and then Hamas has to give up power. And we're seeing a lack of willingness to disarm. In fact, it's seizing weapons from its rivals. So it's actually arming for the moment. 2, it's destroying, killing, and murdering its rivals, which suggests it doesn't want to leave power. So, you know, it really looks a little grim on that level in terms of being executed the way that it's written on paper. That said, though, there's many parts to this and many implications to this agreement, and I'm actually quite optimistic about certain parts of it.
So, you know, Kushner said in an interview that the success or failure of the deal will be whether a viable alternative to Hamas can be created. He said if they are successful, then Hamas will fail. Do you agree with that?
Yes. Basically, the deal is very clear. Hamas doesn't survive this. And Hamas, of course, wants to survive this. So the real question is then, will it be imposed on Hamas, and who does that? It's unlikely the international community with their whatever force they put in. So it may be the Israelis. But I'm not sure this is all to be measured only by that. There's another element of it, which is the Abraham Accords and the larger peace that President Trump is seeking. And Saudi Arabia and the UAE, this is separate from Qatar and Turkey. They have an agenda quite different, competing and in some ways hostile to the Saudis and UAE. The Saudis and the UAE needed something to hold on to so they can proceed forward to come to terms with Israel and maybe Saudi Arabia make peace and the UAE deepen its peace treaty with Israel. And this, whether it works or not, the Israelis and the Americans are playing it through in part to give the Saudis what the Saudis need to go ahead and make and maybe cross the threshold to a peace treaty. So I would measure it not only by what happens in Gaza, but what happens regionally as a consequence of what happens in Gaza, even if it doesn't work.
So, David, you brought up this point earlier of disarming Hamas, and I just want to talk a little bit about that because what does disarming Hamas by force look like on the ground? I mean, is that just a basically resumption of the war, the campaign by Israel?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to do a very un-Washington thing and be quite blunt. I don't see any force that can effectively disarm Hamas short of the Israeli army. They're the only ones who have skin in the game, desire to do it, the will and the capability and proximity to do it, and they believe as their national interest that it must be done. So there's nobody else with that confluence of interest. So I think the Israelis are the likely force, other than maybe Hamas and its patrons in Qatar and Turkey feeling that it would be such a loss or such a destruction of Hamas if Israel did that, that they would be willingly able to give it up and Hamas would disarm itself. But we're talking about a very substantial amount of arming still. We're hearing about 6 brigades, 24 units, 10,000 rifles, several hundred missiles, etc., are still in Hamas, and only about half the tunnels have been disabled. So Hamas still has a fairly potent capability, and it would take a very robust force to do it by force. It would only have to not do it by force voluntarily would require an agreement with Hamas, and Hamas just isn't willing to do that.
Okay, David, just one last question here, and you agreed earlier that perhaps this ceasefire agreement is fragile. So what indicators would you be looking for to see if this agreement, this ceasefire, is strengthening or failing? What would success look like to you?
Well, part of it is time. This doesn't have an unlimited window to keep dragging on. The Israelis have a mobilized civilian army. Their army is based on reservists. They're a small army standing and have to call up reservists for such things. And they're mobilized, and they cannot stay mobilized for very long. So time is an essence. The second thing is the United States wants things to move forward and so forth. So one measure is time. If this drags on, hostages remain in Gaza, albeit that they are dead. I want to make that clear. But they remain in Gaza. Hamas just simply publicly refuses to disarm. They continue to kill their opposition in the dozens or hundreds the way they've been doing. Those would be signs that this is failing. And we are going to get those signs over the next few days and weeks. This is not going to stick around for 2 months. That we're talking about a week or two at most before real meaningful progress has to be made. The second measure is diplomacy. What is agreed to? Because the second, all these 20 points beyond the first, the hostages and the Israelis giving up the terrorist prisoners and the initial Israeli withdrawal, beyond that has not been signed and agreed to, other than in principle, by Hamas or Qatar and Turkey or really Israel. So that has to be negotiated out, and that if that negotiation stalls, that too is a verdict.
Well, all right, David, always enjoy listening to your insight. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
U.S. Attorney for D.C. Janine Pirro is giving an update on the latest arrests of the assault of former DOJ staffer Edward Corstein, nicknamed Big Balls. Let's tune in.
2 young men were brutally assaulted and stomped, highlighting the need for accountability among young offenders in the district. This case underscores the escalating challenges that we face in confronting crime in Washington, D.C. On August 3rd of 2025, at about 2:53 a.m. Sunday morning, at the U Street corridor and 14th Street, which is a very popular hangout, nightlife area, essentially, Ethan Levine, a 22-year-old, and several of his friends were standing outside a Sunoco gas station. They were approached by a large group of teens, individuals who confronted them and began to assault them. Today, we are announcing that Lawrence Cotton Powell, who is 19 years of age, along with Anthony Taylor, who is 18 years of age, are now charged with assaulting Levine. Cotton Powell was stomping on Levine's head, as you can see in this poster to my left. Levine was able to get up momentarily, but the crowd chased him and got him down again. They continued to attack Levine while he was on the ground, and then proceeded to rob him of his sneakers and his watch. The group then, after the robbery and assault of Ethan Levine, they walked in the direction of where another crime occurred within minutes. You have heard of this crime. Edward Korestein, a 19-year-old Doge person who was working in the administration, was walking a young woman to her car when he was approached in the 1400 block of Swan Street Northwest. Approximately 10 suspects approached him, and as they did, he pushed the young woman into the car. And he was protecting her from the group before he was then attacked by multiple suspects, who then punched him repeatedly, causing significant injuries to him. They got him on the ground, and as they were doing so, they demanded the car from the woman who was inside the car and had already locked the car. They were banging on the car. They were pulling the car door, trying to get the car open, and were telling the woman in the car to hand over the keys. And the woman was, as I said, able to lock the car door, so they were unable to gain entry. And it was fortuitous that someone from the Metropolitan Police Department was on patrol. He happened to pull onto the block, and he witnessed the suspects actually assaulting Korestein, who was on the ground lying next to the car. The juveniles fled, but within a short period of time, two 15-year-olds were arrested, and they were taken into the family court by the Attorney General's office. That is the local Attorney General's office. Now, I think what's significant about this case is the history of Lawrence Cotton Powell. I want you to follow me on this. Lawrence Cotton Powell is 19 years of age. He's now charged with robbery, first-degree robbery, for which he faces 15 years in prison. He also faces a charge of assault with intent to commit robbery and another 15 years. And robbery for Edward Korestein, 15 years. Assault with intent to commit robbery, another 15 years. And attempted carjacking, 5 years. Now, let me tell you his background. On April 3rd of this year, Lawrence Cotton Powell was sentenced for a felony attempted robbery. My office asked for jail time. Judge McLean, a judge sitting in the criminal part in Superior Court with no criminal background, made a decision to give Cotton Powell probation in spite of his conviction on a felony attempted robbery. Within 31 days, by May 4th, Powell reoffends. He's rearrested while he's on probation from the felony, and he's charged with simple assault and possession of a prohibited weapon B. On May 4th, my office asked that probation be revoked. But on May 16th, that same Judge McLean comes back and releases Cotton Powell and tells him basically, be a good boy. On July 24th, he is sentenced to one of the two misdemeanors that he's charged with. Again, my office asked for jail time after he victimized yet another person. And on July 25th, another judge suspends his sentence and decides that he should be on probation. So after a felony of attempted robbery conviction, after a violation of probation, after a second crime, after a second conviction, after no compliance with C. Sosa, the judges say, do better, and they let him go. And guess what? Within 10 days, he's at it again with Ethan Levine and Edward Korstein. Now, the co-defendant in this case is an individual by the name of Anthony Taylor. He charged also with the same arrest. He is with the same crimes. He is from Maryland. He is 18 years old. We are unaware of any history as it relates to him. I want to thank the Metropolitan Police Department. I want to thank the fact that this department went above and beyond and worked incredibly hard with the little evidence that we had to identify two of the perpetrators that we're going to be able to prosecute in criminal court. And I want to mention and thank the chief, and I also want to thank Mayor Bowser for her assistance in helping us. This is a coordinated effort by all of us. I also want to thank the marshals who are here, and they'll be speaking to you in a minute. But I again urge the D.C. Council to reconsider those trilogy of laws that allow Washington, D.C. to allow these young people to go out and victimize, re-victimize, and keep re-victimizing and putting the safety of the citizens who live, work, and visit here at risk. And I ask them to stand up finally and send a clear message, because the people of this district deserve no less than safety. So I want to call upon the police chief, Pamela Smith, to say a few words.
All right. Thank you, Judge Pirro. Good afternoon. I'm Pamela A. Smith, Chief of Police for the Metropolitan Police Department. I'm joined today by Commander Kevin Kentish of our Criminal Investigations Division and Detective Thomas O'Donnell of the Carjacking Task Force. The Metropolitan Police Department is proud to stand alongside our partners at the United States Attorney's Office and the United States Marshal Service in announcing 2 additional arrests in the attempted carjacking of Mr. Edward Korstein. This is the latest example of the continuous partnerships between our agencies and our collective community commitment to removing individuals who harm our communities out of our community. It is because of the swift response of our officers, 2 suspects were immediately arrested after the offense occurred. Since the morning of August 3rd, detectives assigned to the Metropolitan Police Department Carjacking Task Force have worked tirelessly with all of our partners to identify and apprehend the 2 outstanding suspects. Just minutes before the attempted carjacking on Swan Street, both of these suspects were involved in a robbery just a few blocks away from U Street. This behavior is indicative of what we see time and time again. A small group of suspects committed a series of violent crime offenses in a very short period of time. These arrests send a very strong message to our community. If you commit violent acts in our community, you will be found, you will be held accountable, and you will face justice. Together, we will continue to work tirelessly to ensure our neighbors and our communities that you remain safe and that those who threaten the safety will be held accountable. I'd also like to thank Judge Pirro and her team for working alongside the Metropolitan Police Department for getting this case to where it is today. I'd also like to thank Mayor Muriel Bowser, who has also been very, very supportive of public safety in this city. And since I've been in this space as the chief, she has certainly been a strong supporter and an advocate for what we need to do in this city to drive down crime. And lastly, the members of the Metropolitan Police Department, the Carjacking Task Force, and our detectives who every single day go out there and investigate those crimes to ensure that our citizens and our communities feel safe. Thank you so much. And I'll turn it back over to Judge Pirro.
All right, and now I'd like to call
and
Don
that was
Schneider
U.S.
up from
Attorney
the
for
US
D.C.,
Marshals.
Janine Pirro, giving an update on the latest arrest in the assault of former DOJ staffer. And as well, along with her, Pamela Smith, Chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, announcing that more arrests have been made in connection with the DOJ staffer. All right, coming up after the break, 480,000. That's how many criminal illegal immigrants have been arrested under President Trump. We have more from DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. Amazon is working to recover its cloud services after a widespread outage. A cybersecurity analyst weighs in on whether there could have been malicious activity. We have more news after this break.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan green vegetable omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
They're just young people, hungry, homeless, and vulnerable. Abused youth often feel safer on the street. Now, more than ever, that's the most dangerous place of all. Covenant House is helping young adults facing homelessness. We're providing safe shelter to thousands, but the need is overwhelming, and no young person is ever turned away. Please call or go online now with your gift of $19 a month to help a young person. You'll provide safe shelter, hot meals, and medical care. Your gift will show them they're loved. Homeless young people are afraid and alone with nowhere else to turn.
You want to know that there's somewhere you can go that's safe. So the Covenant House did that for us.
Please call now with your gift of $19 a month. We'll send you this blanket as a reminder of the comfort your gift provides a young person tonight. Please don't wait. Your gift is the lifeline a young person needs now. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org. Thank you for saving precious lives.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. Never do that. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem shared an update on how many criminal illegal immigrants have been arrested since President Trump took office. Here's a clip from today's press conference in Sarasota, Florida.
Since January, the Department of Homeland Security has arrested over 480,000 criminal illegal aliens. 70% of those individuals have criminal charges against them or have been convicted of those criminal charges. Across the country, we're making communities safer so that families can thrive and they can prosper and they can enjoy the kind of freedom that this country was established to provide. Unfortunately, many times we see the news distorting the truth and not bringing the real facts of the stories to the American people, and that is one of the reasons why we're here today, is to make sure that we're focused on what this office has done.
The secretary called for an end to hostile rhetoric against law enforcement, saying it's led to a 1,000% increase in violence against officers. Noem stressed that officers put their lives at risk every day to protect Americans. The secretary warned that illegal immigrants who commit crimes will be brought to justice. She added that the administration is willing to help those who want to self-deport. Noem said the DHS will continue with targeted operations in Portland, Chicago, and Memphis, and will also be going into San Francisco. An illegal immigrant who was living with a judge has pleaded guilty to gun possession. Christian Ortega Lopez is a suspected Trendiargua gang member. He was arrested in February at Judge Jose Cano's house in Mexico. Ortega Lopez pled guilty to illegally possessing firearms and conspiracy to destroy evidence. Federal authorities say Judge Cano hired him for some home repairs and then allowed him to stay. The judge is facing criminal charges for providing a safe haven for Ortega Lopez and allegedly destroying evidence. In an interview with local TV, Cano said he never knew about Lopez's alleged ties with Trendiargua. The Secret Service has uncovered a suspicious hunting stand overlooking the area where President Trump's plane lands at Palm Beach International Airport. Officials say agents found the elevated structure Thursday during advanced security checks ahead of the president's arrival. The FBI has now taken over the investigation. Director Kash Patel said the stand had a clear line of sight to Air Force One's arrival zone, but no suspects were found at the scene. He added that federal agents are analyzing evidence and digital data to identify who may have placed it there. Law enforcement sources say the stand may have been set up months ago. The discovery follows 2 assassination attempts in January, or rather, in 2024, one in July when President Trump was shot in the ear at a Pennsylvania campaign rally, and another one in Florida where Ryan Ruth was convicted of plotting a sniper attack on a golf course. First son Eric Trump praised the Secret Service, saying they did a great job finding the stand. Amazon's cloud service unit, AWS, is struggling to recover after being hit by an outage that took down several popular apps. Cybersecurity expert Ed Amoroso says it could take time before the root cause is identified.
Malicious activity is the minority of event. The reason we spend so much time on the malicious stuff is because that can be really insidious. Like sometimes for me, and I've been doing this for 40 years, when I see something that's having trouble restoring, when I see something that might be getting worse, for example, like it's this and then it's worse, then it's worse, then I start thinking malicious. But when there's an outage, it cascades, and then the company starts to rebuild and you see things being restored and being improved, that's usually indicative of something that does not have a cybersecurity component to it.
The outage rippled through major consumer and enterprise platforms, including airlines, banks, payment apps, social media platforms, and ride-hailing services. AWS is one of the world's most critical cloud infrastructure provider. It hosts everything from streaming platforms and smartphone apps to financial services and emergency systems. Amoroso said, "We are in an era right now where we are very dependent on the cloud providers."
I mean, the ripple effects of this is obvious. We've all become very dependent on cloud, on the big hyperscalers. So the advantage there is that we get great products, services, they're able to amortize a lot of what they do across a wide base. So the costs are low and the service levels are high. That's the good thing. The bad thing is the proverbial all your eggs in one basket. So when you do have, your business running, say, on Microsoft or running on Amazon, you knock wood every day hoping that things are going to be okay. Now,
Amazon said the issue stemmed from a breakdown in how its DynamoDB service was being reached and accessed across the network. Reports of problems with AWS continue after Amazon initially said it fully mitigated the earlier outage. The tech giant says it is fixing the problem and appears to be working. When we come back, we explain how funding networks tie U.S. billionaires to radical left organizations. Don't go away.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. My grandpa Lou is the reason why my dad and I started racing, and I'm really proud to follow in his tracks. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. I've learned a lot on this journey with my grandpa Lou, and the memories of my grandpa will always be with me. And in our family, we're used to getting involved, and I encourage you to do the same, especially when it comes to caring for your loved ones. When I think about Alzheimer's and the impact it had on my family, I recognize that losing a race isn't such a bad day after all. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Talking about Alzheimer's can be really tough, but if you notice something, have a conversation with your loved one. Encourage them to see a doctor or offer to go with them. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride with being part of these multi-generational businesses. But there's also a significant amount of pressure. My senior year of high school, my dad made the decision that this world no longer needed him in it. I don't know if he was overwhelmed by the bills and checks that weren't going to be coming in because of the strawberries dying off, but it breaks my heart that my dad made a permanent decision for a temporary issue. Don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
In the mornings, that's my time. Watching the sun come up, I can have a cup of coffee and exercise if I want to. It helps me start the day with a sense of gratitude.
Yay!
Every day is a new opportunity. Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love your mind.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how sketch is vaping? It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes, look at that. You didn't even turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you have to get it trending. Right, Backpack Kid?
Let's do it.
First, invite your kid to do the vape talk. Let's try this. All right.
Why is he here?
Yeah, I gotta get it trending, honey.
Come on.
To the left. To the right. Let's go.
Oh, honey, can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
I see a lot of your friends vaping.
Visit talkaboutVaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
President Trump says his administration is investigating the funding behind the No Kings protests on Saturday. On board Air Force One Sunday evening, Trump singled out billionaire philanthropist George Soros as a potential source of funding. This comes as the Trump administration seeks to trace the money behind far-left demonstrations. More broadly, earlier this month, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent stated the U.S. is in the process of compiling a list of organizations, including nonprofits, that could be funding domestic terror activities, including the anarcho-communist group Antifa. Joining us now to discuss is Matt Palumbo, who's been researching this issue for many years. He's the author of the book, The Man Behind the Curtain, Inside the Secret Network of George Soros, and the new book, The Heir. So, Matt, good to see you today. George Soros has heavily funded a number of progressive causes in the U.S. and worldwide as well. Can you explain for us some examples of organizations or groups funded by Soros and his Open Society Foundation, and as well, if you would, the types of activities and activism they're involved in?
Yeah, I'll focus more on the macro level even than individual groups. So the big one is district attorneys, and this is something that Alex Soros has continued, but Soros has a very weak on crime agenda. They want things like shoplifting to be legal effectively. They want it, to control the law where they can weaponize it against the right. So, for instance, there was a Soros DA who decided that vandalism, graffiti would be legal if but at the same time, after that became the law that you could do things like that, there was a guy who defaced a Black Lives Matter mural and got charged by this DA. So it's this sort of selective enforcement. It's a sort of anarcho-tyranny in terms of how these things are enforced. But Chesa Boudin is probably the best example of this gone awry. I think he got the most attention. He was the son of Weather Underground radicals. Both his parents went to jail, but it was sort of like every other day you would see a case of someone would walk into, a CVS, a convenience store. They would load up a bag with products and then just walk out, and there would be no consequences whatsoever. In fact, it got to the point where businesses would just stop reporting crimes because there was no point. The cops wouldn't do anything. And one of my favorite anecdotes to show the effect that had on the nationwide on the city's statistics was that there was a single Target location that decided for 1 month they would report every single shoplifting incident. And the crime rate in the entire city doubled that month from one business reporting all their crimes. So it's this weird paradox where crime went up so much that it actually went down in the statistics. So the DAs were a big one. Ones that are trying to interfere with Trump's immigration agenda. A lot of them are funded by Soros. Another major category, and this is where the big money is going, are in what I call a funds of funds category. So groups like the Tides Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, Carnegie Endowment, these are big money groups that then give to smaller groups. So Soros is giving his money to another group that may then in turn give it to another group that gives it to another group. And this is a sort of layered transaction. It's almost like money laundering, but for charitable groups. And it gives him a lot of plausible deniability in where the money is going. He can say, well, I didn't know this group was going to fund them. And in fact, that's a very common defense of theirs. They also fund think tanks, dozens of them, but the Center for American Progress is a very well-known one. Biden's chief of staff was a member of the Center for American Progress. Neera Tanden was one, and many, many members of the Biden administration were born at the Center for American Progress. And then it's just a diversified set of left-wing groups. For instance, a lot of Get Out the Vote groups are funded by Soros, particularly on an ethnic basis, Asians for Democrats, Hispanics for Democrats, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's also news and media. He funded to the tune of, I believe it was $16 million, a group called Courier Newsroom ahead of the last election. And what they would do is they would set up only in swing states and portray themselves as a sort of middle-of-the-road group, but would fund only left-wing narratives and promote left-wing narratives to try to turn those swing states. Obviously, it failed miserably, but that's where they're at. And George Soros, despite stepping down from the Open Society Foundation in June of 2023, is actually still playing a role, arguably, through these media organizations. For instance, he's bought Radio Mambi, the biggest right-wing Hispanic network in, I believe it was Miami, Florida. George Soros bought up, and that was through his hedge fund, which he's still in control of. And he's also trying to buy, there was other groups he bought ahead of the 2024 election that the Biden FCC fast-tracked at a rate that had never happened before. And our current FCC commissioner is currently investigating how that happened. So I think at a macro level, those are, his main areas of influence, I would say.
So Matt, we actually reached out to Soros's Open Society Foundation, and a spokesperson told us that the grants they have given to Indivisible, which is a leading No Kings organizer, were not specifically for those protests. And they said that grantees, quote, make their own decisions about their work consistent with the law and the terms of their grant agreements. So Matt, can you give us an idea of how exactly this funding is allocated from your research?
Well, they're made grants to the entire organization. So genius or stupidity of that statement is that, well, no matter what they do, they can say the money didn't fund it. They often say, we don't knowingly fund violent activities. And the word knowingly is doing quite a bit of heavy lifting there, because they always just deny it. And the analogy I give is, it's almost as if, you see an arsonist and then you give them gasoline and a match and say, all right, I have no idea what they're going to do about this. And if they lit a fire, well, how could I have possibly known that wasn't my intent? And that's what they're doing with these groups.
So, Soros is just one person, right, among billionaires and millionaires who give money to progressive groups, which often use the money to fund protests. Can you give us an idea of some of the other players involved and their interests in these causes?
I think Neville Singh is probably the biggest one right now. He's a tech billionaire who decided, and a Maoist, obviously, or actually. I don't know how you can be a Maoist and not be aware of the fact that he killed 45 plus million people. He killed more people than Adolf Hitler. So he's literally worse than Hitler. I know liberals love to say that about right-wingers, but it's literal in that case. And his main area of influence is a political party that has no seats in any legislature called the Party for Socialism and Liberation, but it works as an activist group. The recent LA riots over ICE are part of that. You can actually see at any protest, their signs always have PSL Web on the bottom. They're like the yellow or orangish signs. They always look identical, and they're at every left-wing rally. So that's another major group. And he also funds a lot of left-wing media that is pro-CCP. PSL also is pro-CCP, and they are revisionists to the highest order. They deny, for instance, that anyone died at Tiananmen Square. They deny the Uyghur genocide. They've only criticized the CCP for not being left-wing enough and not being communist enough. So he's, I would say, the biggest one on the left that comes to mind. But then there are other people like Bill Gates who are funding center-left causes that aren't explicitly left-wing, and a lot of people like that.
So, Matt, can you explain to us as well the potential issues with this kind of funding, particularly from U.S. donors? Because, one can argue that as long as the people participating in the protest genuinely support the cause, and as well no laws are being broken, what's the problem here?
Well, the problem is the laws are being broken. Like, for instance, the 2014 Michael Brown protests in Ferguson that spread nationwide were funded by a lot of Soros groups, and they were burning down buildings, assaulting people. In the George Floyd riots of 2020, they were also Soros funded. The estimate I saw, I believe, was a little over $2 billion in property damage, although I think somewhere as high as $4 billion. And they're actually massive understatements because they were calculated by insurance payouts to businesses that were damaged, but only about 40% of businesses have insurance. And of those that do, most are only partially insured. So it could have been as high as 10 billion. 25 people were killed during them, and the looting too was, had to have been in the hundreds of millions to billions. So they definitely are breaking the law. I guess you can give the No Kings protest credit that no one got hurt this weekend, but during the first one, someone got shot.
So, Matt, I'm wondering as well, are there any equivalent to this on the far right? Are there billionaire donors giving large amounts of money to groups engaged in far-right protests and political activism?
No, and a lot of the far-right groups in this country are infiltrated by federal informants. I mean, maybe to a less extent under Trump now, I'm not sure, but like Patriot Front, the Proud Boys, like even the Proud Boys, when they were being charged for January 6th related crimes, there was a federal informant who was recommending lawyers to them to try to sabotage. So a lot of those groups are infiltrated. They are, I guess, grassroots because they're not funded by billionaires. But no, there's no far-right groups that are being funded to that extent that are causing problems. In fact, most right-wing activism has been more for fiscal issues or against abortion. But again, those are very peaceful groups. There's not really a possibility for violence there. So that's a good thing. I think the best thing from a right-wing donor was Elon Musk buying Twitter because it allowed for the free flow of ideas. Twitter was, I would say, 95% left-wing before Elon Musk. Now it's about 50-50. Previously, narratives like the Hunter Biden laptop, which there was one study from Newsbusters, found actually would have tipped the election more in Trump's favor if it had been disseminated. Those narratives were completely frozen. You get banned for promoting them. And it's very easy to think of stories, even just in the past few months, that we would have never heard of if it wasn't for Elon Musk opening up those basically an information highway. That poor Ukrainian woman who was murdered, that story would have been banned on the basis that it was going to inflame racial tension or some excuse that a left-winger would have come up with. So, our right-wing money is going to very productive causes that are actually helping people.
Well, all right, Matt, very well spoken. I do believe that is our time today. Really appreciate you coming on to talk to us.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you.
The Supreme Court today has agreed to hear 3 new cases, including an appeal by the Trump administration over a lower court's ruling on a law that prohibits drug users from possessing guns. Here's more.
A law that was used to convict Hunter Biden is the subject of an appeal by the Trump administration. The disputed law bars anyone from possessing a gun if they are an unlawful user of or addicted to any controlled substance. A lower court concluded that the gun ban can only be applied if people are accused of being intoxicated by drugs and armed at the same time. The Trump administration is generally supportive of Second Amendment rights, but argues that applying the ban to drug users is a reasonable restriction. The man who challenged the law was facing a felony conviction for illegal gun possession after the FBI found a firearm and illegal drugs in a search of his home. The government's petition described the man as a drug dealer who uses illegal drugs. The man's attorney says the ban puts millions of Americans who have tried marijuana at risk. Around half of U.S. states have legalized the recreational use of marijuana, but it remains illegal under federal law. The other cases coming before the court involve the definition of a transportation worker and disclosing civil claims in bankruptcy filings. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
The White House has confirmed it has struck a drug shipping vessel operated by a Colombian guerrilla group. And President Trump announced new actions against the Colombian government. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Eduardo Martinez, has more on the story.
The United States has now struck 7 vessels in the area of operation of Southern Command. 6 of the vessels that the U.S. military has struck were operated by Venezuelan drug traffickers, namely Tren de Aragua, a designated foreign terrorist organization. Over the weekend, the Department of War confirmed it had struck a vessel operated by the Ejército de Liberación Nacional, a foreign terrorist organization, and a Colombian guerrilla group operating in between Venezuela and Colombia.
They are a drug manufacturing machine, Colombia, and we're not going to be part of it. So we're going to drop all money that we're giving to them.
President Trump announced over the weekend that his administration would halt all aid payments to Colombia and would increase tariffs on the South American nation. The Colombian government in turn recalled their ambassador to the United States after President Trump called Colombian President Gustavo Petro an illegal drug leader.
They don't have a fight against drugs. They make drugs. They refine drugs. They make cocaine. They have cocaine factories. They have no fight against drugs. And I'm stopping all payments to Colombia because they don't have anything to do with their fight against drugs.
In his youth, Gustavo Petro, Colombia's first left-leaning president, was a member of the 19 de Abril guerrilla group and spent 2 years in prison. Since he took office, drug production in Colombia has skyrocketed to record levels and organized crime has flourished. Over the weekend, the U.S. Embassy in Colombia was attacked.
Today, a group of criminals, some of them wearing hoods, in a premeditated and planned manner, evidently organized themselves to attack the police in the vicinity of the U.S. Embassy with explosive devices, incendiary devices, and arrows with bows.
A U.S. strike conducted last week left survivors that then were captured by U.S. forces and are now being returned to their countries of origin.
Extremely confident that when we take out one of these boats, it's boats that would have really terrible poison that would kill tens of thousands of Americans. When these actual boats get blown up, sometimes there are survivors, and I think the Secretary of State just makes a decision depending on what the scenario is.
U.S. strikes have thus far destroyed over 100,000 lethal doses of drugs in the South Caribbean Sea. President Trump has not ruled out targeting drug smuggling operations on land in both Colombia and Venezuela. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Fallout from another federal department as the government shutdown continues. U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright shared the latest furloughs from the Nevada national security sites.
And of course, there are people that it's too risky, even in the short run, to not have. So there will be carve-outs. We did not furlough everyone at NNSA, but we did furlough the large majority. But there is a certain number of mission-critical folks that are still working.
Wright said they have run out of funds, and today they were forced to furlough nearly 70 federal employees at the site. He said the majority were contractors. Wright said across the National Nuclear Security Administration, there have been 1,400 impacted employees across the country. Wright called on both Nevada senators to vote in favor of continuing federal funding. One has voted to abstain. Wright expressed the gravity of furloughs in this agency. First, he noted the impacts it has on families, and second, he said this puts our national security at risk.
Think of our adversaries abroad. This is among the most critical workers in our country. They test, maintain, and ultimately construct the modernized version of our nuclear stockpile. We need to take that deathly serious. We've never had to furlough workers in this area before. We need to end this as soon as possible. Again, I thank
Moscow and Washington are making progress toward a summit between its two leaders. President Trump is set to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Hungary. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pasdar has the latest.
Right now, the priority of the European
Union is rightly directed towards the war in Ukraine.
European allies are meeting in Slovenia on Monday. French President Emmanuel Macron says the group, known as the Coalition of the Willing, is set to meet again on Friday.
As for us, we continue to advance at Ukraine's side, which is resisting bravely. I think that we must not submit to any of the latest disinformation. Ukraine is continuing to resist with a great deal of courage by continuing to innovate, to produce.
This week, we aim to adopt a major new sanctions package on Russia. Every euro we deny Russia is one that it can't use on war.
Meanwhile, Moscow and Washington are making progress towards a summit between the two leaders. President Trump is set to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Hungary. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov had a phone call on Monday. They reportedly discussed a bilateral agenda of Russia-US relations, including economic and geopolitical ties. Russia's Lavrov says the conversation was, quote, constructive. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
2 people were killed today when a cargo plane skidded off a runway at a Hong Kong airport after it struck a ground service vehicle. Here's what we know.
2 Hong Kong airport security workers died after a Boeing 747 cargo plane skidded off the runway, hit their patrol car, and pushed it into the sea. That is according to the city's airport operator on Monday. The crash happened around 3:50 a.m. local time. The airport security staff were not breathing when rescued from the water. One was declared dead at the scene, and the other died later in hospital, according to Stephen Yu, the airport's executive director of operations. He added that authorities are investigating the cause, looking at weather, runway conditions, the aircraft, and the crew. Yu also said flights at Hong Kong's airport have not been affected. Emirates, the Dubai-based airline, said the crash at the world's busiest cargo airport involved an ACT Airlines plane operating on its behalf. There was no cargo on board. All 4 crew members of the plane escaped safely. This was Hong Kong's deadliest airport accident since the 1999 China Airlines crash that killed 3 people. Boeing did not immediately respond to a request for comment.
Trade talks between the U.S. and China resumed this week as export restrictions and tariff threats have led to a trade war. Meanwhile, the Chinese regime is holding a central committee this meeting, which could mean a power shakeup for CCP leader Xi Jinping. We have more after the break.
I trod on my glasses yesterday, and I had to pay up front for a new pair that I can't even pick up for another 10 days. So I looked for another way, and I found Select Specs. I ordered online. My new glasses just arrived this morning, and I can pay over the next few weeks. This is the way to buy glasses.
See now, pay later with Select Specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options only at selectspecs.com.
So at the age of 5, I was sexually molested. I had my first child at the age of 15 and became homeless at the age of 16. The scariest part about not having a place to live was having a child and not having a place to live and not knowing where our meal was going to come from and where we're going to sleep. To be homeless as a teen, I didn't ask for that.
No young person should ever have to worry about having a safe place to sleep at night, or a warm meal to eat, or whether anyone cares about them. 1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year, and that's unacceptable. But the good news is there is an organization making a big difference, Covenant House.
Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night.
For over 50 years, Covenant House has been helping youth in crisis.
It was pretty tough. But Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today.
Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life They gave me the love that I needed. They just really genuinely just wanted to help me succeed, and I'm succeeding.
Your $19 monthly gift is urgently needed to reach other young people who are facing unimaginable situations. Call or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Your support makes the work of Covenant House possible. Thank you for caring.
If you love them enough to drive an hour to cheer them on as they get beat 11-0 in the rain, then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the-right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Throw that ball, Diane. Woo! You got this.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump signing a rare earths deal with Australian Prime Minister Albanese. This in an effort to curb dependence on China. Trade talks between the U.S. and China resumed this week as export restrictions and tariff threats have led to a trade war. Meanwhile, the Chinese regime is holding a Central Committee meeting, which could mean a power shakeup for CCP leader Xi Jinping. The Department of Homeland Security says that ICE is still prioritizing the worst of the worst. Secretary Kristi Noem provides the latest ICE arrest numbers, marking the 9th month of the Trump administration's immigration enforcement efforts. 2 individuals suspected in a series of assaults and attempted carjackings are charged in Washington, D.C. U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Janine Pirro, details the charges. Despite receiving over $10 billion in security assistance to counter drug trafficking, Colombia now produces more cocaine than ever. The Trump administration is now targeting what it calls the inaction of that country's government. The British government is working to ensure Israeli soccer fans can attend an away game in Birmingham. It comes after they were banned from joining the match due to safety concerns, though some say the Israeli fans were banned due to their nation of origin.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Thank you for staying with us. President Trump and Australian Prime Minister Albanese signing a joint minerals deal in efforts to curb dependence on China. And the president floating other threats on China ahead of his meeting with CCP leader Xi Jinping in South Korea. NTD's Mari Otsu brings us more from the White House.
As China is now imposing tougher export controls on its own critical minerals, today President Trump and Australian Prime Minister Albanese are signing a joint rare earths deal in an effort to curb dependence on China. The deal involves the mining, processing, and exporting of these rare earths from Australia to the U.S. Take a look.
We've had a very good relationship. We've been working on that for quite a while. In about a year from now, we'll have so much critical mineral and rare earths that you won't know what to do with them. They'll be worth about $2.
And White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett this morning is saying that Australia will be really helpful in the effort to make the global economy less vulnerable to the, quote, rare earth extortion that we're seeing from the Chinese. President Trump and Albanese are also talking submarines and military equipment today, with President Trump saying that the AUKUS pact, a Biden-era security agreement between the U.S., the U.K., and Australia, is, quote, moving along very rapidly. President Trump also restates that additional 100% tariff threat on China if they cannot make a deal by November 1st, and floats export restrictions on aircrafts. Take a look.
Said, if we don't make a deal, I'm putting on an additional 100% on November 1st. I think we'll make a deal. They threatened us with rare earths, and I threatened them with tariffs, but I could also threaten them with many other things, like airplanes. You know about airplanes, because they can't get parts for their airplanes. We build their airplanes.
Trump is projecting optimism about getting a trade deal out of his expected meeting with CCP leader Xi Jinping on the sidelines of APEC in South Korea in about 2 weeks. But he also says that he demands China to buy American soybeans. And on Sunday, he demanded that China curb the export of fentanyl to the United States. Don, back to you.
All right, Mari, thank you. The Chinese Communist Party is holding a central committee meeting this week to plan for the next 5 years, and it may include a shakeup of Xi Jinping's power. That's as Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says he will meet in Malaysia with the Chinese vice premier this weekend. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley joins us. Jack, good afternoon. What can we expect out of these meetings?
Good afternoon, Don. Well, this today is the first of 4 days of meetings, bringing together hundreds of CCP members as part of its rubber stamp legislature, all to discuss the next 5 years of its economy. And this will be behind closed doors. But what we should be on the lookout for here are any leadership changes. That's because last Friday, Beijing ousted its number 2 general and the army's top political leader, along with 7 other high-ranking officials. Now, these were members of the party that were seen as part of CCP leader Xi Jinping's faction, not his opposition faction, which is also very strong within the party. Now, this has sparked speculation that Xi Jinping may now be losing power. It also raises questions about whether this could impact China's ability to invade Taiwan as they've been wanting to. Here's President Trump on this earlier today.
First of all, the United States is the strongest military power in the world by far. It's not even close. Not even close. We have the best equipment. We have the best of everything, and nobody's going to mess with that. And I don't see that at all with President Xi. Now, that doesn't mean it's not the apple of his eye, because probably it is, but I don't see anything happening.
Now, President Trump says that as the U.S. has promised to come to the defense of Taiwan if it were ever invaded by China. Now, President Trump made those comments also alongside the leader of Taiwan's neighboring country of Australia. That's as Chinese fighter jets raised flares, releasing them dangerously close to an Australian Air Force plane just over the South China Sea. Australia says that the flares came within striking distance of the aircraft, calling the maneuver unsafe and unprofessional. Don.
And Jack, a new round of trade talks between the U.S. and China starts this week. Where does the U.S. and China currently stand on trade?
Right. So U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is meeting with a CCP delegation in Malaysia this weekend. Tensions are flared, really, although U.S. officials are saying they have calmed down a bit since these trade talks are on the way. But last week, Beijing expanded its export controls on rare earth materials, a move that Bessent's called unprovoked and an escalation in the trade war. President Trump threatened to impose a new 100% tariff on China that would take effect November 1st. Last week, Trump himself said that the U.S. and China are in a trade war. And Secretary Bessent said that the export restrictions from China sends a signal to the U.S. and the rest of the world that they may need to decouple from China's economy. Take a look.
Mr. President, you're meeting with President Xi in a few weeks.
Yeah.
If you can't come to an agreement or a deal at that meeting, are we in for a sustained trade war with China?
Well, you're in one now. Look, we have 100% tariff. If we didn't have tariffs, we would be exposed as being a nothing. We would have no defense.
This is China versus the world. They have put these unacceptable export controls on the entire world. If China wants to be an unreliable partner to the world, then the world will have to decouple.
And now Bessent says that the U.S. is working to restore its own rare earth processing capabilities, which it once was a superpower in before, over the last 3 decades, China coming in and buying off U.S. processing rare earth companies and moving them to China. Now, the latest action on that today is President Trump signing a critical minerals deal, as we heard earlier, with Australia. But here at home, the U.S. is investing in billions in domestic rare earth processing. In August, for instance, the federal government invested a 15% stake in the U.S.-based firm MP Materials to both mine and process those rare earths, which go into every electronic from your cell phone, iPhone, all the way to defense weapons, and other electronics like that. Don.
Okay, Jack, thank you for the report. President Donald Trump and Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese met today at the White House. Joining us to discuss is Grant Newsroom, retired U.S. Marine Colonel, former U.S. diplomat, and senior fellow at the Center for Security Policy. Colonel, always good to see you. Can you talk to us about how significant this first meeting is between the two leaders?
Well, it's a good meeting. I think particularly having signed the agreement on rare earth exports from Australia. Australia is swimming in rare earths, and they could probably provide all of America's requirements. The state of Montana probably could as well. But the fact that Australia has stepped up and says it's ready to develop its industry here and to link up with the United States and make Australia a main, if not the main, source of rare earths is a big deal. The two leaders, and I think Albanese and Trump may not like each other very much, but that's beside the point. That this is a significant thing, particularly given the importance of rare earths.
Do you think this meeting has improved the two nations' ties, its relationship?
Well, I don't know. In one sense, I suppose it's always good to sort of get together and have a cordial meeting. But there's something about Australia that if you live there, if you pay attention, and you say, for example, read the Australian press for a week, they despise Donald Trump. And there's also a latent sense of, not so latent actually, sense of anti-Americanism in Australia's political and ruling class. Hard to imagine, particularly for people of my generation, where we've always thought the Australians and the Americans love each other. And the Australians, make no mistake, are fine people and have a very good military, even if it doesn't quite have a strategy. But there's something going on here where the relationship is not what it was. It's still basically okay, but there is more friction than one would imagine, particularly coming from the Australian side.
Okay, Colonel, let me put it this way. If, let's say, China invades Taiwan, can the U.S. depend on Australia for help?
Maybe. And I would say it's better than 50% chance, but that's not huge. Australia also, one has to ask, well, which of Australia's 11 warships are they going to send up to help? The Australian military is very professional, but it doesn't have the hardware really that it needs. Their air force is good, of course, but would the Australian government, a Labour government in particular, would they go in on a Taiwan fight? I don't know. They say they will, or suggest they will, but I'm not sure. There's a sort of a softness towards the People's Republic of China in the Australian administration, in the Labour Party, that one cannot overlook. And they have shown a willingness to sort of put national interest or national security second to the opportunity to sell lobster and wine to China. So it's not sure. It's not clear. I'd say better than 50% chance, but it's not what it once was. And I say the Australia of 30 years ago is not the Australia of today.
Okay, so if China is looking at this, what might they be thinking? How are they reacting? What message does this meeting send to Beijing?
Well, it certainly is better than an acrimonious meeting, like as Mr. Trump has had, say, with Ramaphosa of South Africa, and also Zelensky once or twice. But so the Australians see that the Americans and the Australians are getting along. They are cooperating, and the AUKUS agreement as well, where the Americans are going to provide submarines and submarine technology to Australia. That's a big deal. So China looks at this and says, well, how do we have to split this relationship? And economic pressure on Australia is one way that they are going to go about it. And that's also something. They also have a political warfare effort, very active against Australia, and they are using the Chinese diaspora in Australia to exert influence on this, and also appealing to that fundamental resentment that you find in parts of Australian society against the United States. So China knows it has its work cut out for it when it comes to Australia, but it also sees that it has some opportunities.
Okay, so you said earlier that the Australia now is not the Australia 30 years ago. Can you talk about that shift a little bit? What has changed? How is Australia balancing its ties between the U.S. and China?
Well, partly, and I'm sort of half joking, is that a lot of people have the image of Australia as a bunch of Paul Hogans, or also as a bunch of the people who stopped the Japanese in New Guinea on the Kokoda Track in 1942, and the first ones to do it. And it's just it's a change in sort of national character. It's hard to explain. Partly a certain type of people has died off. And what you do have is one that is, in some respects, anti-military, and also is all in on the green, sort of the green movement, despite Australia having all the energy resources it needs. And it simply is not as committed to its own defense, it seems. And it has gotten itself dependent on the People's Republic of China. Australia doesn't make very much anymore. And when it comes to energy, it probably has about 3 or 4 weeks in the event those supplies were cut off. So it hasn't taken national security as seriously as it used to. But I will stress the Australian Defence Forces are very, very professional. The big problem with them is there's not 10 times as many of them. But in terms of the country, it's almost they haven't decided if they're exactly what they are pro. Are they pro-West, or are they trying to split the difference? And for many years, in recent times, the Australians have said, well, we want to rely on China for our economy. We want to rely on the Americans for security. Well, you can only do that for so long. At some point, you're going to have to choose, and that's a balancing act that really can't continue. And when you do look, as I said, at the nature of the Australian Labor Party and even some of the Liberals, the Conservatives, that there is a sort of a distancing, I think, from the United States and from sort of the West, as you might call it, and a cozying up to the PRC. Of course, business interests in Australia, just like in the United States, to do their best to ensure that China's interests are well represented.
Okay, so you're saying that this balancing act can't continue. How crucial is Australia to U.S. efforts to counter China? Can the U.S. do without Australia or other nations in the area like New Zealand as well?
Well, we could probably do without New Zealand, but Australia is very important. I would say it's not as important as Japan when it comes to regional defense, but it's a close second when it comes to that. Geographically, Australia is very important if you're going to not just conduct military operations, but you want all the help you can get. And the political benefit of having Australia aligned with us or on side, and having the Australian military available to pitch in where they can. And they have always been willing to do that to date. That is important. And there's a political, psychological aspect to having Australia as a solid ally, not just of the United States, but of Japan and the other free nations in the region. So it's an important piece of the puzzle. Is it indispensable? It's hard to say. Well, maybe not, but you certainly don't want to have Australia drift away into some sort of inadvertent neutrality.
All right, so Colonel, I want to pull on a thread that you mentioned earlier on rare earths. Is it possible for Australia and the U.S. to cooperate in such a way to reduce complete dependency, eliminate complete dependency on China on critical minerals?
I think it probably is. Not just Australia. As I said, the United States has plenty of them in America. But Australia is blessed with an overabundance of these things. And if they're serious about it, they make the effort. That the Chinese may find that, well, they're not quite as important as they used to be. And this could happen quicker than people think if the will is there. But do expect the PRC, the Chinese, to apply a lot of pressure on Australia to try to sabotage and sort of coerce the Australians into not moving forward as fast as they could, or as much as they could, with this rare earth proposal that Albanese just signed today with President Trump.
Okay, Colonel, just one last question. Can you speak in detail what has been the impact, really, in the real world of China's dominance on rare earths?
Well, it is such that the Americans and the Trump administration have not been able to do anything near what they would like to do in applying economic pressure and other pressure on the PRC. By China playing this card, it put the administration in a position where they had major companies, American companies, coming to the White House and saying, look, if we don't have ready access to these things, we're going to have to shut down some of our factories within a matter of weeks. And that's how big a chokehold the Chinese have got. They've set about this decades ago, and they have gone about really getting a vertical lock on the entire rare earth industry to the point where the figure is something like 70% of all rare earths come from China, and 90% of the processing is done in China. And that is a stranglehold. But sometimes when you have that stranglehold, it doesn't quite have the effect you think. It's not as if the Americans and the West are going to roll over. What you could find is it simply has spurred them on to doing things like the Americans and the Australians have agreed to do, and develop alternative sources, alternative rare earth industries, in effect, processing systems. And China may find itself with a lot of rare earths, but not being the only game in town. And that is something that we just might see.
Well, okay, Colonel, great insight as always. Pleasure speaking with you.
Well, thanks very much.
An appeals court has cleared the way for President Trump to send the Oregon National Guard to Portland. We have more news after this break.
For 65 years, Mathis Home has been helping you create the room of your dreams at great values. Come celebrate with anniversary savings store-wide. Check out their amazing selection of upholstered beds. Here's a hot buy. This modern queen bed is covered in a soft, luxurious fabric. It's available in 2 colors for just $5.99. There's over 100 bedrooms in stock, so you're sure to find the style just right for you with fast, free delivery. Come celebrate with 65th anniversary savings at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Dave's Coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Dave's Enzyme Fermented Coffee.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back in stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings, regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queens $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
You can talk to me if you're feeling sad.
Thanks for hearing me out, bro.
Whenever you need to talk, I'm here, okay?
And now at the White House, President Trump welcomes college baseball champions LSU and LSU Shreveport. The Tigers won the NCAA title while the undefeated Pilots took the NAIA championship. Let's take a look.
In their conquests, I want to just begin by saying that we're joined today 2 collegiate championship baseball teams from the great state of Louisiana, 2 teams that were absolutely the top. Both of these teams brought incredible pride and grit and glory to their schools, for the state, and today they're bringing that same Louisiana spirit to a place called the White House. Has anyone heard of it, huh? You know, we're building right behind us, we're building a ballroom. They've wanted a ballroom for 150 years, and I'm giving that honor to this wonderful place. I think we should do it. This was the ballroom, and this room holds 88 people, and the new one will hold 999 people, which is a difference. I say 999 because I didn't want to crack 1,000. I didn't want people to get concerned because that's getting big, but we're going to have, we'll have the most beautiful ballroom in the country. It's going on, and for those that are interested, we got to get back to baseball, but You see the gold drapes? That's a knockout panel. We knock it in, you go, that comes out, and then you have essentially glass and exactly in the decor of the White House. I didn't know I'd be standing here right now because right on the other side, you have a lot of construction going on, which you might hear periodically. But that's a knockout panel, and that goes right into the ballroom, and the ballroom's going to be beautiful. So you'll have drinks, cocktails, everything on this floor, and then they'll say, welcome to dinner. You walk into the ballroom, Mr. Senators, and you're going to see a ballroom the likes of which I don't think it'll be topped. It'll be the finest. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It just started. And it just started today, so that's good luck. We want the same luck that they had and the same talent. But I'm thrilled to welcome the 2025 NCAA College World Series champions. That's pretty good. The Louisiana State University Tigers. So where are you guys? Great. And of course, we have the 2025 NAIA Baseball National Champions, the LSU Shreveport Pilots. So those two teams, you'll hear about them in a second. And I want to thank the Tigers head coach, Jay Johnson, who I just met. These are great coaches, who led the team to its second championship win in just 3 years, and also is the LSU Shreveport head coach, Brad Neffendorf, who is the College Baseball Foundation's 2025 Coach of the Year. Not bad. I think we should bring them into government. They don't need the baseball. We could bring them into government. We could definitely use it. We're also honored to be joined by the incredible duo from Louisiana, Speaker Mike Johnson. As you know, Mike is phenomenal. The job he's doing is phenomenal. And House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, a very brave man, Here's Steve. Hi, Steve. Two great guys. You know, Steve is very brave, though. He was badly hurt, and they put him at second base. Did you ever hear of Bobby Richardson? He had great depth. He had great range. He could go all over. He was with the Yankees for many years, and I don't know, he came from around your area, I think, Bobby Richardson. He was second baseman for the Yankees for many years. So he was known for unbelievable. He'd field balls at shortstop when they were hit. It was great. And when Steve was so badly injured, you know about that. Nobody ever really suffered like that. We thought he was a goner. Actually, I went to the hospital that night. But he came back, and a few months later, he's standing at second base, and he was having a hard time moving. I wouldn't say he had Bobby Richardson's range. Do you agree with that? And he was having a little bit of a hard time. He was coming at it. It was really a very bad experience for him. So he's standing in the stadium over here, the Washington Stadium, and a ball is smashed to him. The first pitch of the game, he's at second base, and he wasn't looking to be a hero. And he dropped to his knees, and he stopped it, and that was a hard hit. This happened from God. The first pitch of the game, it's ripped. You know what I'm talking about, Mr. Governor. The ball is ripped to him, hard ground ball. He falls to his knees, he blocks it. He grabs it, he throws it to first. They got him out. Nobody could believe it. Nobody could believe it. And they immediately took him out of the game because there was going to be no way, right? There was no way you were going to top it. It can only go down from there, right, Steve? And I said, this is amazing, but it was really something. We're also pleased to be joined by two wonderful people, senators, your senators, Bill Cassidy and John Kennedy. Thank you both for being here. Appreciate it very much. Very, very much. A lot of good political people in that state. It's been known for politics. I think I would say politics, baseball, and football, a little bit of football too, right? Representative Julia Letlow. Julia? Hi, Julia. How are you? Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry, who we had a lot of luck with, right? You won that campaign. It was beautiful. And his wife, Sharon. Thank you very much. Hi, Sharon. Nice to see you, Sharon. and all of the other Louisiana fans and politicians. You have so many political leaders. I want to just thank you all for being here. It's a great tribute to this team, to these two great teams. Very rare that you have two teams in one room. You might have them, but they're not from the same state. What is it with baseball? What is that, Coach? What do you figure that is? Just has it, right? Pretty good. I tell you, it's pretty amazing. Two amazing seasons, two incredible teams to celebrate. So let's start with the Tigers, okay? Throughout their 2025 season, the LSU Tigers delivered some of the most electrifying moments in the history of college baseball and ended with a phenomenal record of 53 wins and just 15 losses. That's pretty good. I'd like to have that in the major leagues. You finished the year with an 8-game win streak and a 2-game series sweep against Coastal Carolina in the College World Series Finals to take the title. That's the 8th national baseball title in LSU history. That's amazing, actually. That's really great. Now, LSU's pitching staff was the best in the conference, leading the nation with 760 strikeouts. Cade Anderson was ranked college baseball's #1 player on the mound. I would like to represent him. I'm leaving the White House immediately. Oh, the money. Oh, somebody's going to make some. Where's Cade? Where is Cade? Where are you, Cade? Come here, Cade. Boy, oh boy, would I like to be doing that, huh? 180 strikeouts, that's a lot. That's almost a record. In Game 1 of the championships, he pitched a complete game shutout, preventing Coastal Carolina from scoring, even though they had one of the best offensive teams in all of baseball. Even a single run they couldn't get, so it's no wonder he was named the College World Series Most Outstanding Player. Cade, thank you very much, Cade, and it's great to have you at the White House. We like winners at the White House, Cade. To advance to the regional championship, LSU faced Dallas Baptist, supposed to be a great team. An outfielder, Chris Stanfield, was, they say, unstoppable. He built an early game momentum with a second-inning home run, contributed multiple RBIs, and brought in an additional run with a sacrifice ground out at the end of the game. And you ended up winning the game, so I think your last sacrifice didn't matter too much because they won the game 12-0. That's not too bad. Where are you? Where are you? Well, look at this guy, huh? Is he that good a player? Is he good? Pretty good, huh? Oh, that's a good team. So to advance to the regional championship, LSU, and if you look at it, LSU has turned out to be named one of the best teams over the last 10 years, according to the experts, of which there are many, but most of them can't play very well, right? Back in Baton Rouge, you had a tense Game 1 on the Super Regional West against West Virginia with a full court in a fifth inning, a full count. In the fifth inning, the bases were loaded, and sophomore shortstop Stephen Milam launched the ball deep over right center field, securing a grand slam and adding 4 runs to the numbers already up substantially. West Virginia began to mount a comeback in the 6th, but Josh Pearson smashed another grand slam over the wall, carrying the Tigers to victory. So, Josh, where are you? And where, let's see, Malum, where is Malum? Guys have very strong hands, I'm noticing, you know. They're ripping my hand up. These are strong people. You don't hit those home runs without strong, beautiful hands. You agree with that, Mr. Speaker? How was your baseball? Okay, not bad. Not quite as good. First baseman Jared Jones had one of the most iconic outings of the season during the June 14th, my birthday, College World Series. Thank you very much. Thank you. Flag Day. That was Flag Day. You know that, right? Against the Arkansas Razorbacks. After knocking a home run out of the park earlier in the game, Jared walked up to the plate in the bottom of the 9th with 2 outs, and the score was tied, and they looked like he could be in trouble. And a runner was in second with a 2-1 count. He hit a line drive up the middle, giving the Tigers enough time to rack up a 6th run, sending them straight to the finals, and the rest is history. You know what happened. 10 players of this elite squad are now headed to even greater glory in the Major League Baseball. I think you're going to do all right. I would like to represent every single one. No, I mean, the team must be incredible. Cade Anderson was drafted by the Seattle Mariners, so I think, aren't they playing a big game tonight or something like that? Are you going to be watching that? I think so. You better be watching. I'm so busy I don't get to watch baseball too much. I did watch the other night, however. I turned on, and there happened to be a Japanese player who was not bad. He was one of the best pitchers I've ever seen, one of the best hitters I've ever seen, and that all makes for a nice contract. He's pretty good, right? Pretty amazing when you think. They say one of the best games ever played because you had pitching and hitting with the same guy. Pretty exciting. Chase Shores was drafted by the Los Angeles Angels. Where's Chase? Where's Chase? Good. Wow, nice big tall guy. Very good. Good. Anthony Ironson and Jacob Mayers were drafted by the Boston Red Sox. Boy, you have good. Where is Anthony? Is Anthony here? Anthony right here? Good luck, huh? Good team. Good team. And Ethan Frey was drafted by the Houston Astros. Another good team. They win a lot, right? Where is he? Where is that guy? Huh? Good luck, huh? You feel confident? Feel good? Daniel Dickerson were drafted by the Milwaukee Brewers. Where's Daniel? Congratulations. Good luck, huh? Good. Jared Jones was drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Jared, congratulations. Yeah. And Cade Woods, who's not present, who wanted to be here so badly, had a problem, was drafted by the Atlanta Braves. That's fantastic. I mean, that's a lot of talent. By the way, we have somebody here who was drafted in another sport, number one at everything. He was never drafted number 2 or 3. The great Herschel Walker is here, I understand. Where's Herschel? Where's Herschel? Come here. Come here, Herschel. I'm not sure that LSU loves this guy, but they do respect him. There's nobody like, come here. You want to say a couple of words about baseball players? Go ahead.
Hello, man. How you doing?
I saw him sitting out there. I said, come on, Herschel.
You know, I absolutely love this president, but I didn't ask him to put me on the spot. But anyway, I just want to tell the players, continue to have that determination that you had in baseball carried throughout your life. So things may get tough, but remember, you can always get up no matter whatever happens, gets up, and continue to fight, all right?
So Connor, thanks, Herschel. What a player he was, huh? Oh, boy. Couldn't stop him. He'd go around you, but if he couldn't go around you, he'd go right through you, and he'd carry 4 guys on his back for as much as nobody better. I think maybe the best in history in college, and he had a great career in the NFL, too, and he's a great person. And now he's going to be the ambassador. Come on, name the country, Herschel. He's going to be in the tough job. That's a tough job, right? We'd like to have that job a little bit. We're leaving tonight. Connor Ware was drafted by the New York Mets. Connor, where are you, Connor? Boy, that's a hell of a team. And Luis Hernandez will be joining the Minnesota Twins organization. So I just want to congratulate Luis. Where are you, Luis? Congratulations. I've never seen a team with so many people being drafted into the major leagues. They cannot be a bad team. In fact, I think your record should have been better. That's a hell of a record. So we also have a second amazing team with a big win to celebrate today, the LSU Shreveport Pilots. This year, the Pilots became the first and only college baseball team in history to go a full season totally undefeated. You have... That's not bad. Well, I want these two teams to play. You want to do it? I'll do it. We'll get the stadium. I'll pay for it. What the hell? But you had an astounding record of 59 wins and no losses. What the hell is with that? It's in baseball, normally you have like a little bad luck, you lose a game or two. That's pretty good. What you have to say that he did a good job. Pretty darn good. He did a good job. Congratulations. Two great coaches, two great people, too. You also became the first team in the history of LSU Shreveport to bring home a national title. Head coach Brad Neffendorf deserves a special recognition. The Pilots have been in every NAIA national tournament over the past 2 decades. That's pretty amazing, but they never brought home the title until Brad came along. And so Coach of the Year and all of that stuff, these two coaches are unbelievable, the top of the line. And I'll be honest, I watch Major League Baseball and other sports, and they keep hiring the same coaches over and over again, right? They get fired, then they hire them again. I'd hire these two guys, but I don't want to take them away from your school, so I'm only kidding. Just pretend. You'll all leave, say, that was terrible. They'll both be hired. I'll tell you what, they do a great job, too. During the Red River Athletic Conference Awards, 14 members of the Pilots team received all conference team honors, and 6 players were selected Gold Glove team for excellent defense. I can imagine. Isaac Rodey was named Conference Pitcher of the Year for a crushing league with, think of this, a 12-0 record and 114 strikeouts. How about that? 12-0 is not bad. And Kobe Reeves, a left-handed pitcher, was honored as the conference's newcomer of the year. So where are you two guys? You're over here, right? That's a fantastic thing. This team fought hard all the way through the last game of the season, the NAIA National Championship against Southeastern University, which supposedly is a great opponent, and your, frankly, opponents quickly took the lead in the first 2 innings, but you refused to fold or quit or do the thing that we're used to seeing a lot of people do in Washington. They quit, they fold. We don't fold, do we, huh? We don't fold. Jose Saloren, who is supposed to be a terrific prospect for the future, drove in 2, and Anthony Swenda scored on a wild pitch. In the next inning, the game was tied. Where's Anthony? Is he here? Anthony, good going. Come here, Anthony. Get over here. Southeastern pulled ahead again, but the Pilots answered in a thunderous fashion. Home runs by Jackson Searing and Ian Montz, and they say they're tremendous prospects also. And clutch RBIs from Ryan Davenport and Austin Gome turned the tide very quickly. By the 8th inning, the Pilots were in full command, adding 3 more runs before slamming the door shut. When it was over, the scoreboard read 13-7, and the Pilots were national champions. Wow, that's great, fellas. So together, how about the record of these two teams together? You put them together, you win. I think you win the World Series, period. A lot of you are going to be in Major League Baseball. We'll be watching you for a long time to come, and it's amazing. Great athletes, great-looking, young, wonderful people. Together, these teams made history and won Louisiana's unparalleled glory on the college baseball diamond, dominating not 1 but 2 leagues in a single year. Think of that. You dominated each league. You dominated. It's pretty unheard of. But there is something about your state. You're really special state. And when you look at the kind of love here, you get a lot of the parents here that are so proud of what they have produced. Some of them are thinking about dollar signs. They're saying, others are just saying, how handsome is my son, right? But regardless, I just think it's amazing. It's a great tribute to the state. And I want to introduce now, to say a few words, another winner. He's taken over a situation where we had a majority of 2. Nobody knows what a majority of 2. We actually had a couple of moments where we were a majority of 1 person. And I said, you know, and it was terrible that I said this, but I said it. I said, Speaker, we're 1 heart attack away from losing the majority, right? And the Speaker said, please, I don't want to think about that. But we hung in, right, Steve? We hung in, and we got everything we wanted, the great, big, beautiful deal, the biggest ever produced. Think of it, with a majority of, I guess at that time we were like a majority of 4. And I had to make calls at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock. You don't want to do this, fellas. Just keep playing baseball. It's more fun. I got a call from the Speaker. Sir, we have 7 hard no's. And I'd say, that's not good. This was at 3 in the morning. We needed the vote by early in the morning. And I had to call people at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. I say, Jim, he said, you have my vote, sir. No, I thought he was a hard no. He just wanted me to call him. Then I'd call another one. Hi, Jack. It's 3:14 in the morning. Hi, Jack. Sir, you have my vote. Oh. So the hard no's turned out not to be that hard, John. They just wanted me to call them, you know. They couldn't just raise their hand like they're supposed to. They wanted me to call. And we ended up winning, and it's the single biggest bill ever passed in the history of Congress, because we ultimately got the Senate too. And what we don't want to say is that it's actually so full of things. I mean, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, the biggest tax cut in history, the biggest deductions ever taken, job-producing deductions, $50 billion to rural hospitals. We took care of Medicaid, Medicare, we took care of everything. And we did something that people didn't know. We didn't know where we'd stand in a year or 2 years from now. So we put every single thing that we wanted in that bill for 4 years. So we don't need any more votes. All we want to do is have a vote of continuation. And it's the first time in history that a group has not voted for continuation. So they have what's called a Trump derangement problem. Have you heard about that problem? Because that's the only reason this could be possible. But I think we're doing very well. I think they're going to have no choice but to go along, because the country is setting records in every way, and people want it to continue that way. So we're hoping the Democrats become much less deranged, and that we will get the vote pretty soon. And I hear they're starting to feel that way too. They're starting to feel like they really have to do what's right for the country, and they will. But I want to just introduce Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. He's fantastic. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I'll be very brief. We wanted to thank you for being such a gracious host and having us out to recognize this excellence, and it really is. Louisiana's punching way above our weight limit, and this is the pride of the state right now. These guys behind me, they worked so hard, and they did it with class, Mr. President. They had grit and determination and integrity, and it's so good to see that pay off. And Louisiana's, as you said, a special state filled with great people, great fan base. The parents are part of that. You have the Board of Supervisors and the board over the LSU system. And we recognize South and North Louisiana delivering these great titles, great championships, and it's really been something. And we want to thank you for your tremendous record and all you're doing right now. I mean, this president has not only reduced taxes, as we said, we've cut fraud, waste, and abuse out of government. He solved the border crisis. He's solving the crime crisis. Oh, that's right. He's also resolving wars around the world, but he still takes time. That's right. He still takes time to recognize the leaders of the next generation, and that means so much to all of us. I know it does. I have a personal connection to both schools, sir. You know, I'm a double alum from LSU and Baton Rouge, undergrad and law school. My daughter's the same. She's sitting here with me, Hannah. But I grew up in the shadow of LSUS, literally just south of the campus. We lived in a little neighborhood there, and I used to go play baseball on the field over there at the school. So this really runs deep for all of us, and it means so much to us. It means so much to us that you're here to help celebrate. And I get the honor of introducing the first of the two coaches to speak, and both of these men are extraordinary. Their records speak for themselves, the way they've led these young guys, the way that they've shown them the way. I love the demeanor of both of these gentlemen and how they do it. They're extraordinary coaches, and they could coach in the majors, you're right. But we hope they stay where they are for just a little while longer. But I'm going to recognize the first one here. And there's a lot of reasons why Coach Jay Johnson is recognized as one of the greatest coaches because he does so well. He has all-star recruiting classes because he's able to go out and do that so well. He has elite pitching development. He's had an incredible record of postseason success, as you all know. And as was noted, he's brought home not one but 2 titles in 3 years to LSU, which is a historic legacy that we have. I was there in the 90s when we were winning these things, and it's great to be doing it again. The 7th and 8th national titles now delivered by one of our favorite people, and we're delighted. I'm delighted to welcome him up to say a few words, if you will. Coach Jay Johnson, thank you so much.
And you were just watching President Trump at the White House welcoming college baseball champions LSU and LSU Shreveport. And the president jokingly saying that he would like to see both of them play each other and saying that he'll pay for it. Attorneys for former FBI Director James Comey filed motions Monday in an effort to have the 2-count federal indictment against him dismissed. Comey was charged in September with 1 count of making false statements to Congress and 1 count of obstruction of justice. His attorney called the indictment a vindictive and unlawful prosecution. He also challenging the appointment of interim U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan. Meanwhile, the Justice Department may seek to have Comey's attorney disqualified. They claim he was involved in an alleged plan by Comey to leak information to the media after President Trump fired him in 2017. Marching orders can now be given to the Oregon National Guard to deploy to Portland. A divided federal appeals court ruled that President Trump can send the troops to Portland while a legal challenge moves forward. The 3-judge panel agreed to lift a lower court order that blocked the Trump administration from sending in the Oregon National Guard troops. The soldiers are being tasked with protecting federal immigration personnel and property. The worst of the worst is still a high priority for ICE, according to Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Noem makes a stop in Florida to highlight the, quote, good work that the law enforcement officers have done in response to criticism over a recent jet purchase by the DHS during the government shutdown. NTD correspondent Jason Blair reports.
Across the country, we're making communities safer so that families can thrive and they can prosper and they can enjoy the kind of freedom that this country was established to provide.
DHS Secretary Kristi Noem says that ICE is still prioritizing the, quote, worst of the worst criminal illegal aliens. Noem highlights some recent arrests in the Sarasota, Florida area.
The convicted murderer, whose name is Eric Carlos Artiles Ramos, an illegal alien who was from Cuba. Oscar Alfredo Retena Marroquin, an illegal alien from El Salvador. He was convicted of sexual assault against a child.
9 months into the Trump administration's immigration enforcement efforts, Noem says that the DHS has arrested over 480,000 illegal immigrants.
70% of those individuals have criminal charges against them or have been convicted of those criminal charges.
Noem also says some words of thanks to law enforcement.
Thank you for all that you do to protect our country. Thank you for risking your lives for the American people and being willing to go out and stand for what is right, stand for law and order.
And the DHS has received criticism from House Democrats for a recent purchase of 2 Coast Guard aircrafts. In a letter to Noem from Democrats on the House Appropriations Committee, Reps Rosa DeLauro and Lauren Underwood write, it has come to our attention that in the midst of a government shutdown, the United States Coast Guard entered into a sole source contract with Gulfstream Aerospace Corporation to procure 2 new G700 luxury jets to support travel for you and the Deputy Secretary at a cost to the taxpayer of $200 million. Secretary Noem responds.
These aircraft are Coast Guard aircraft to replace 25-year-old airplanes that are necessary for the mission of the Coast Guard. Congress appropriated the dollars and paid for them in the big, beautiful bill, and we're grateful that we're able to move forward.
Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
2 individuals suspected in a series of assaults and attempted carjackings have been charged in Washington, D.C. U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Janine Pirro, announced the charges against the teenage suspects.
Today, we are announcing that Lawrence Cotton Powell, who is 19 years of age, along with Anthony Taylor, who is 18 years of age, are now charged with assaulting Levine. Cotton Powell was stomping on Levine's head, as you can see in this poster to my left. Levine was able to get up momentarily, but the crowd chased him and got him down again. They continued to attack Levine while he was on the ground, and then proceeded to rob him of his sneakers and his watch.
Pirro told reporters that after the suspects allegedly beat 22-year-old Ethan Levine, they moved on. Pirro said the suspects then encountered former Department of Government Efficiency staffer Edward Korstein that same night back in August. The 19-year-old former Doge employee had been walking a young woman to her car. Pirro said approximately 10 suspects confronted Korstein as he pushed the woman into the vehicle to protect her. Pirro said the suspects then proceeded to severely beat Korstein, demanding that the woman hand over her keys. A police officer arrived on scene before the suspects fled. Two 15-year-olds were arrested. Kroger is preparing to beef up its staff for the holiday season. It's planning to hire more than 18,000 associates across its family of companies. This is 7,000 fewer than last year. The openings are focused on customer-facing roles. This includes cashiers, baggers, clerks at the deli and bakery, and pharmacy technicians. Other retailers are also in the holiday spirit, like Kroger. Bath and Body Works lowered its number of seasonal hires, while Dick's Sporting Goods ramped up its holiday hiring numbers. As for e-commerce giant Amazon, it's holding steady with 250,000 seasonal hires for the third straight year. The British government is working to ensure Israeli fans can attend a soccer match in the English city of Birmingham. It comes after the fans were banned over safety concerns, though some say the Israeli fans were blocked due to their nationality. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more.
The British government said it was the wrong decision to ban Maccabi Tel Aviv soccer fans from attending a match at Villa Park in Birmingham next month. Last week, local authorities announced that the Israeli team's fans would be barred amid safety concerns. Police said they had classified the match between Maccabi Tel Aviv and Aston Villa as high risk. Birmingham's Safety Advisory Group made the decision. British Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy said it has wide implications.
It's set against the backdrop of rising anti-Semitism here and across the world, and an attack on a synagogue in Manchester in which 2 innocent men were killed. It has a real-world impact on a community who already feel excluded and afraid.
Nandy said the government is working with police and the Birmingham Council to consider other options to manage risk and to ensure fans can attend the match safely. She said resources will be found if needed. Conservative Opposition Culture Secretary Nigel Huddleston said the ban was both an embarrassment and a disgrace.
Have we really reached the point where we cannot welcome visitors from overseas to our second city because we cannot guarantee their safety on British streets, in British football grounds? This is not how modern Britain should present itself to the world.
Alongside concerns over the safety of Israelis and Jews, police also raised concerns about violent clashes between soccer fans. In November 2024, a match between Amsterdam's Ajax and Maccabi was marred by clashes between Israeli fans and pro-Palestinian protesters. And last Sunday, a match was called off in Tel Aviv when supporters of rival teams Hapoel and Maccabi clashed violently.
There are a minority of supporters in every club, and in this club in particular, whose behaviour is reprehensible. But that is not the case for all fans.
Nandy said it is unprecedented to ban all fans of a visiting team due to the behaviour of a small minority. Labour Member of Parliament Gareth Snell said banning Maccabi fans for their behaviour presents a challenge.
If this ban is allowed to go ahead, the game after the Maccabi game is with the Swiss-based Young Boys. Their fans have been involved in 2 riots, including hospitalisations. If their away team is not banned, the question should be, what is different between the Maccabi fans and the Young Boys fans?
The suggestion being that the difference is because most Maccabi fans are Israeli and Jewish. Nandy said Snell put it better than she could. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has previously called the move to bar the fans wrong and said the country will not tolerate anti-Semitism on British streets. The government is expecting police to set out what they would need to police the game safely without barring any fans by early next week. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. We're going to take a quick break now. Stay with us. We have more news coming and evening news at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. I'm Don.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders